and hail, but the bigger threats are damaging wind, widespread damaging wind, and also we're going to be dealing with the risk for isolated tornadoes. We've had a couple of tornado threats so far. Had a couple of tornado touchdowns yesterday on both sides of the international border, Canada and the U.S. But the main event here is going to be some aggressive, severe weather. And as we zoom in here, you could see, by the way, to the bottom of the screen there, you can see some other shots from yesterday in North Dakota. Same complex of thunderstorms. Now we're into the Midwest, but also we're tracking some other areas with severe weather. There's Delafield, Wisconsin, with some storms in progress. Brian Emfinger, he's out there live tracking some of this severe weather. We're going to be checking in with a variety of storm chasers here, and we do have some big concerns for sure with this ongoing setup. So we are live on both TikTok and on YouTube, and we're going to be with you live here on the AccuWeather Network until at least 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 Central, tracking these storms. So let's get into it specifically. There will be multiple rounds of this, and the first round is moving into the western distant suburbs of Chicago right now in areas, again, still well west of Cook County, but we are beginning to see some severe weather breakout in some other areas here into the western suburbs of Chicago. So as we bring up the high-res radar data out of Chicago, here we have areas like Kane County and Kendall County, and also to the north, McHenry County, under severe thunderstorm warnings. And we're getting a pretty close view of these storms. We're only about 20 to 30 miles from the radar site now as these storms close in. This little cone of silence there, that little dot, that is the actual radar site. And as we turn the reports on, we're seeing some strong winds here. A 61-mile-per-hour gust reported 17 minutes ago, 2:45 Central Time in Leland, Illinois. That's in DeKalb County. So a personal weather station, one of those backyard weather stations there, reporting that. And also, 12 minutes ago, Union, Illinois, up into an area halfway between Rockford and Waukegan, between Rockford and Lake Michigan, facing a 60-mile-per-hour gust, as estimated there, to the east of Marengo, Illinois. But let's go a little farther north, and I'm going to bring up the Milwaukee high-res radar. And here you can see one of these warnings is that peach color. It's kind of blinking at us a little bit differently than the typical orange that you see, or the yellow-orange severe thunderstorm warning. This is southern Jefferson County of Wisconsin. And similarly, we're getting a razor-sharp, very close look at this. Is basically right on top of, I'm not even going to measure it because it's right on top of the radar site here that covers southeastern parts of Wisconsin. And when we look at the reports for this storm, here is a recent report with a 75-mile-per-hour wind estimated in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. So nasty winds out there. Here's an estimated 85-mile-per-hour wind gust back at 2:26 p.m. That was in Rockdale and Jefferson County. So some tenacious wind pushing into an area near the western suburbs of Milwaukee. And this is on a trajectory to continue to barrel east here through this area with a pretty fast forward motion here. And we are going to be tracking these nasty storms right through Milwaukee in the near term. Heading back to the north, you can see the nature of these storms in many other areas. I'm going to turn the warnings back on, and they're pretty consistent. There are not many areas, not many gaps along this squall line that are not seeing thunderstorms, or severe thunderstorm warnings, I should say. But along the Boeing apex of this Boeing line segment here, we are facing a significant risk of damaging wind, and that's part of the main concern here, up into areas near Waupun and approaching West Bend. That appears to be the apex of this Boeing line segment that's going to be producing some very strong and severe wind into Oshkosh and Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So beware of that. And Milwaukee, you're part of this conversation, absolutely part of this conversation as well, there in Milwaukee and up to the north as well. Returning to the more comprehensive view on radar, to the north, we got some severe weather all the way up in the northern parts of Minnesota. Some of these storms have been severe as well. A little more hail up this way. It's kind of more of a diverse mix of wind and hail reports. Here you can see Wanaska, Minnesota there with about nickel-size hail. Rousseau, Minnesota, 55-mile-per-hour gust. Fertile, Minnesota, some strong wind. Here's a 54-mile-per-hour gust in Felton. So it's kind of more of a diverse mix. Early this morning, we had hail the size of quarters there in north-central Minnesota. Let's go farther south into Peoria, south of Chicago. The area near Bloomington, Normal, facing a nasty round of storms moving in to this area. And again, these storms are going to be severe as well. We got severe warnings, Tazewell, Mason County, down into areas like Menard County and all the way up into Woodford County as well. And look at that, just amazing cloud videography there from North Dakota yesterday. This is the same complex of thunderstorms. As we zoom out here, we could show you the reports from the past. I'm going to give you the accurate information here. These are from the past 12 hours. If I go 24, look at this. This is giving you a better view of what went on yesterday as well. I'm going to turn these back on here. I'm going to get the labels out of the way. So primarily, the history of this severe weather event has been mainly wind-driven, with a few tornadic exceptions. Henry, South Dakota yesterday, Noonan, North Dakota yesterday. But most of the reports were wind, but we had some fierce wind. And I'm going to throttle this back down to the past 12 hours just because I don't want this to muddy the waters as we do more storm tracking moving forward. I'm going to turn that back on. But these storms here, again, will remain primarily a wind gust producer with tornado threats as well. Then tomorrow we got more where that came from. I wanted to show you some of the top wind gust reports. And again, some of these we brought up there in the radar form. But here's a list. 88 mile per hour gust in Darlington, Wisconsin. Brings Back to the Future to mind. They're tremendous wind. And Stockton, Illinois with a 73 mile per hour gust. This is the kind of thing you do not want to mess with. So again, very serious wind event here. These storms will continue to move east, but I wanted to point out new development late tonight for some. And even later this evening, take a look at this. In Iowa, there will be some new development here into the evening and the late night hours, even beyond the main event. So, if you take this at face value, I think that Future Radar is running a little behind. You can find a different product on the AccuWeather app and AccuWeather.com. But the message here is that there will be another complex of thunderstorms that kind of develops behind the main event into parts of Iowa. That may prolong the severe risk for some. And then early tomorrow morning, late tonight, early in the morning, look at this, new development. And that's going to continue to move east. We're very concerned about a high-end severe weather event in Chicago tomorrow evening. Let's take a look at what's going on with storm chaser and meteorologist Tony Lawback, though, right now. And Tony, I wanted to check in with your perspective. Where are you, and what are you seeing?
Well, Geoff, good to see you again, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah,
yes, we are working our way southbound now toward the Centerville, Iowa area here in southeast Iowa. So we're several rows of counties south right now of the Des Moines area. A lot of storms going up. We've been talking about the threat today being more damaging winds. Versus what that is going to be is because we're seeing a lot of storms already firing up in the area. And really, when you want a significant tornado day, you want isolated storms. Right now, we're seeing kind of a mess of storms, particularly in southern Iowa. That is why we're heading south right now to get into northern Missouri, where right now the storms still kind of in clusters between, Unionville back toward the Kansas City, St. Joe. Messy than what is going on right now to the north across the border in southern Iowa. So right now you're looking at blue skies. That is a key ingredient here. We had those storms that moved through this morning, kind of cooled things off, rained a little bit here, but we've got the clearing now that has taken place ahead of these storms. So the instability is definitely starting to build out here. That is going to increase the intensity of these storms as they move to the east northeast. The storm we're looking at right now is the one that's just on the north side of Princeton, and then there's another cell immediately behind that, kind of in the Mount Marion or Morion area here. So that would be just the southeast of Blythedale on the Missouri side of the line, so far northern Missouri. Before we went on air, you heard him talking about that. That goes till 9 p.m. tonight. So the ingredients are in place to see tornadoes. But again, a lot of that's going to depend on storm mode. If we keep these storms discrete longer, that's going to up the chance of tornadoes. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at hail and a damaging wind threat. So we're going to continue to push our way south to Centerville, likely heading down across the border to Unionville in northern Missouri to get in front of these storms. And by the time you come back to us next time,
we may have just briefly lost Tony. All right. Tony, we appreciate that report. We've had you for 99% of that, 95% of that. So we just lost your signal and your coverage. But hey, I brought up the visible satellite to kind of dovetail with what you were saying. The sun's shining. There will be more storms popping. Stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break, and thanks for staying with us live here on YouTube and TikTok. We're going to be continuing to track the severe weather. And again, there are large complexes of thunderstorms popping in southern parts of Iowa right now. Not quite severe, but the severe risk is increasing into parts of Illinois and eastern Wisconsin. And these storms are really racing east quickly. In fact, numerically, and I got to share this with our network viewers here as well when they rejoin us. But these storms are booking east and forward speed here at around 65 miles per hour. So since we were last on radar here before we went to Tony, new severe thunderstorm warnings have been issued for Chicago, the third biggest city in the nation, and for Milwaukee, Wisconsin as well. We got a new tornado warning up to the north as well. Let's take a look at the population of that one. I got a lot of different monitors in front of me and some different resources to work with. But there is the first tornado warning in about an hour that has been issued here. Yeah, the last warning was at 2:21 Central. And here we are at 3:11 Central Time with a new warning issued by the folks at the National Weather Service in Milwaukee. And our team here at AccuWeather has also been issuing SkyGuard alerts for our business clients that have assets in the area and so forth. But we want to take a look into what's going on with this storm just to the east-northeast of Fond du Lac and south. Really, the rotation area is south of Fond du Lac right now in Fond du Lac County of Wisconsin. So back over to the high-res radar. We're going to share this with our AccuWeather Network viewers here momentarily as well. But it's a pretty ragged-looking cell, I'll say that. But as we loop this, we need to keep an eye out for possible rotation. And just grabbing the most recent frame, switching over to the velocity scan. There is, I'm going to see if there was perhaps a tightening maybe 1 or 2 frames ago, and it's not terribly obvious from this perspective here. Let me slide the map down a little bit. What I'm noticing here is a slightly stronger outbound signal here, and there's very weak flow on the western side of this. So this is co-located with the center of the warning. So if I were to sketch up a warning based on this particular thread, it would look a lot like that. And that is what we're facing right now. So into central Fond du Lac, eastern Fond du Lac County, we're facing an ongoing tornado threat. I would give this a lower rating in terms of its likelihood of producing a tornado, but it's one with some rotation. And the area of rotation was near the community of Campbellsport. I'm trying to find Campbellsport. Here it is. All right. So this makes a little more sense here. The rotation is very ragged, but it kind of it's located generally just, again, we got there's some outbound wind and some inbound. There's also some inbound wind just to the east of that official warning. So weak rotation near Dundee. Primary area of rotation is likely over the area near Eden now as this storm lifted north of Campbellsport. And it continues to pull to the north right now. You can tell from my tone of voice, it's a pretty ragged-looking couplet, not the textbook couplet that you might expect to produce a tornado. But we have to keep it as a risk of a possible tornado here into Fond du Lac County. So we'll keep a close eye out on this, mainly to the east of Byron and east of Fond du Lac proper. I'm going to reset the radar here. The AccuWeather Network is going to rejoin us, and we're going to, again, dig into this once again. Thanks for being with us here on the YouTube and TikTok simulcast. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network, rejoining our commercial-free YouTube Live and TikTok simulcast. We are dealing with, again, new warnings that have been issued. These storms are moving east-northeast at 65 miles per hour. The rapid movement of these storms have now put Chicago under a severe thunderstorm warning. And as we track this and bring up the high-res radar data, again, at 65 mile per hour movement, these storms are racing east. And I'm going to kind of track the storm from Aurora into the Chicago metro, and you can see just a tremendous list of arrival times here because we're in such a populated area. But areas like Willowbrook, you could expect to see the severe weather roll into your area in 20 minutes. So we're looking at about 3:35 Central Time. Into Wheaton, 13 minutes from now, so about 3:28 Central Time. Naperville, 10 minutes from now, that's 3:25 p.m. So that's the issue. Rapidly moving storms bringing damaging straight line wind right into the Chicago metro. Here's a new gust of 60 miles per hour from Union, Illinois. Let's take it farther north. We've got a new severe thunderstorm warning that I was telling our simulcast followers and viewers about in the city of Milwaukee. In that area also, storms are rolling in faster. The line is reaching Milwaukee a little quicker. Switching over to the Milwaukee high-res radar data, you can see a few renegade downpours that have broken out right over Oak Creek and approaching an area just east of the Milwaukee Lakeshore. But the primary band of storms is rolling in from the west. Your eye may also be drawn to this newer tornado warning, and we were looking at this. It is not an impressive couplet, but we still need to take it seriously. It's the kind of storm that might be embedded within a type of tornado that would be embedded within a brief, within a squall line, and it could lead to a brief tornadic spin up here. It's not a photogenic couplet that tells the tale of an obvious area of rotation. But again, there is an increased amount of outbound wind here and very little wind on the west side. There's also a little bit of a counterclockwise, actually clockwise zone of circulation. Now, it's rare, but about 1 or 2% of tornadoes actually spin clockwise. They are anticyclonic tornadoes, and there may be a little spinner potential for a bookend vortex type tornado that could spin up with anticyclonic clockwise rotation near Dundee, but also by virtue of the strong outbound wind, there's also in the heart of this warning an area of some tornadic potential between Eden and moving toward Banner. So again, this is not going to be the picture-perfect type of couplet that we see in the Great Plains that signal an obvious tornado. This would be a brief tornadic spin-up. This tornado warning is running until 3:45 Central Time, so it's got still technically about 28 minutes to it, but it's moving quickly, and the risk is going to be over in Eden long before then. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. And again, that's the only tornado warning to speak of at this moment. And the warning is in effect for, give you a little bit of census information here, for about 10,000 people there. And again, we'll continue to track that one overall as well. Wanted to see if the latest, the latest version of our team's forecast here for the risk includes a high risk for severe weather through the Quad Cities, through eastern Iowa, well behind this Chicago and Milwaukee line. So we're keeping an eye out for that. And we are dealing with, again, some nasty storms that will bring a damaging wind gust risk. And overall, again, these storms will be barreling into Lake Michigan. Some of these will survive across the lake into areas around western Michigan. Let's go back to radar. Again, there's that tornado warning. And just checking out for the latest velocity scan. And here you can see a little bit of an enhancement to the outbound wind in red. And also a little bit of an enhancement to this unusual, and I say that because it'd be rotating clockwise couplet between Armstrong and Dundee. So we have two possible spinners, two possible zones of rotation, one near Banner and another one near Armstrong, moving in opposite directions. And the risk is present for a brief tornadic touchdown there near Dundee, on the southeastern corner of this warning, and also into the area near Banner. That's in Wisconsin. Here we're into an area west of Sheboygan. Sheboygan County, you do have a severe thunderstorm warning for you, but we're tracking, again, the potential for a bookend vortex type tornado. And when I say bookend vortex, we're talking about a strong squall line with strong straight line winds, and around the fringes of the strongest of that wind push, you can get these little vortices to form. I can try to illustrate that a little bit. I'm going to go to the base velocity. This is going to be a little bit imperfect, but again, if you get a really strong gust of wind that almost operates like a mini cold front, I'm going to take a few liberties with this. You can get strong wind and less strong wind. So by default, if you put a pinwheel here, you'd get this kind of a rotation. And then on the south side, if you have really strong wind and then less strong wind, you could get a little spinner like that. So again, that's just, I'm illustrating what a bookend vortex might be. In this example, if we get more specific with this map, here we are with outbound wind and inbound wind near Dundee, an outbound wind and presumably a hint of inbound wind near Banner. So those would be perhaps your bookend vortices here. With I've taken a few liberties here with this the squall line pushing east, where there is the risk for a tornado. Now let's pull the map out here and take you back down into areas near Menominee Falls. Strong and severe winds picking up right now. As we zoom out, I'm going to go back to the base velocity and the nature of the wind racing away from the radar site. Here we're looking at 60+ mile per hour winds. That's measured maybe 700 or 800 feet above the ground. A lot of that's going to mix down to the ground here, and you can see the latest pixels updating here. But again, 60 mile per hour winds screaming into the east here, moving into the Milwaukee metro, and we could do something similar with the Chicago radar site, looking at not the storm relative motion, but the straight up wind and the base velocity. Again, these are racing in toward the radar site, and we got 83 mile per hour winds, not that high up above the ground, maybe 800 to 900, 1,000 feet above the ground. That's moving toward the Chicago metro. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break, but with this feature here, we can measure wind speed within the storm using the Doppler effect. And again, the Doppler effect, if you are familiar with maybe the sound that a NASCAR vehicle makes as it races by you, you hear the pitch in the race car. It goes from high to low as it passes by you. So the frequency through which these radar pulses are returning to the radar site is different if the distance between the radar and the source of the radar return, if it's bouncing off of rain, if the rain's moving toward the radar site or if it's moving away from the radar site. Same principle. Now we do have a tornado warning here into the Chicago metro, and I want to bring up the latest here. We do want to take a look at overall the risk for a tornado here. I don't want you to look at that version of it too long because it's real fuzzy. Here's the high-res, better view, moving right through the area near Saratoga. So population-wise, we're looking at a pretty sizable crowd here. We had 199,000 people in and around Shorewood and Joliet, Illinois. I remember hearing legendary meteorologist Tom Skilling talk about Joliet, Illinois when he would be doing the weather. And I'd watch it years ago on WGN. Had the nationwide cable broadcast. He's a legend. But overall, these storms are racing in. And as we take a look at the velocity scan here, the storm relative motion, you can see a very strong screaming inbound signal here and not a whole lot to the north. So if you put a pinwheel anchored right in between at the X, it would spin pretty fast, wouldn't it? So you're going to be dealing with some rotation here and the potential for a brief tornadic spin-up. Again, not the classic couplet. This is driven by strong winds, and you can even see a little swirl-like signature here near Saratoga. We'll talk about this with our AccuWeather Network viewers that are about to return and join us here in 1 second. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. I was just telling our friends here on TikTok and on YouTube Live about a new tornado warning, and this one's a little easier to talk about because of the way it's racing into the Chicago metro with one well-defined, very strong zone of screaming inbound wind. I'm going to go back to the Chicago radar site now and bring up the velocity scan. And here you can see, it's not, again, this is not the classic couplet that you would see with the Great Plains supercell. This is driven by screaming straight line winds. I'm going to press pause. You see the green blob. It's pretty obvious there in the western part of this tornado warning. Clearly, just based on the geography and the orientation of the polygon, even without even looking at this, you would say, well, that's probably where the tornado threat is. But this is what I'm going to show you. If we look at the velocity couplet, we got 46 mile per hour wind, subtracting out the 60+ mile per hour forward motion of the storm. This is storm relative wind. So 46 in contrast with basically 0 or 8. So there is a couplet here, and the default rotation, here's the true wind as being measured by the radar site, about 84 miles per hour. And it actually is measuring something very close to that because it's racing almost directly toward the radar site. And the radar can only measure what's coming in or out at that vector. So the message here is that there is an area of screaming inbound wind. And if there was a pinwheel anchored near the G in Saratoga, if you had kind of strong wind coming in here and really strong wind on the south side, that pinwheel or paddle wheel or whatever you want to call it would begin to rotate. So that's the risk for a tornado. We're going to potentially see a tornado threat here for Grundy County, Illinois, and parts of Will County, Illinois. 199,000 people under this tornado warning in Grundy, southeastern Kendall, and western Will County, Illinois. All right, obviously my weird pause there was because we were just sending our AccuWeather Network viewers to a commercial break. But again, that's the main event here. That by far is the largest tornado warning by population right now. 2 tornado warnings that we're tracking. Again, you could tell from my tone I'm a little, maybe somewhat less impressed by the rotation signature near and east of Fond du Lac. We got to keep an eye out for this one, though. There's a little bit of a cell merger here and some funny business in the world of interactions between different cells, and they can lead to rapid tornadic spin-ups here. And when I say that, I'm looking at this cell that strengthened and moved north, and it merged with a larger mass. And sometimes when you get these storms coming in from different vectors merging in kind of an erratic way, that can lead to little zones of spin up. And again, there is the risk there still present in Fond du Lac County, but northeast of there, you can see the Weather Service in Green Bay issuing some aggressive, destructive, severe thunderstorm warnings into some areas like Calumet County and all the way to the stem of the Door Peninsula. But by population, and also just by virtue of the screaming wind associated with this cell to the south, this other storm has my eye a bit more as it closes in on the area. From Saratoga, approaching Joliet in Illinois. Almost 200,000 people under this, 199,000, 52 schools and 1 hospital, if you're curious there, if you're scoring at home, as they say when you're scoring the baseball game. That's the census data. New update here, still radar indicated for that cell. But again, we just need to keep a close eye on all this. I'm going to jump over to our YouTube live chat here. All right. Yeah, we appreciate you being with us here as we're in a brief commercial break on the AccuWeather Network. I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything regarding some of our internal communication and so forth. And looking at, you know what, I need to get into the YouTube Live too. I want to see your comments. So forgive me for the slight delay. I just pumped that out on my Twitter or X account a little bit ago, but I need to be in the YouTube Live so I can see your comments here. We're leaving money on the table if I don't see your comments, and I want to be able to answer some of your questions. I know that Jesse Farrell and others here on our team are also monitoring these. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. So a lot of conversations about Reed Timmer. We have, sometimes we share his video. He's been chasing without a shirt in the past hour or two. It's good. Reed, we love Reed. He is very funny. He knows what he's doing. He's very, very funny, very intelligent as well, and he's an amazing chaser. All right. Somebody wondering about Eastern PA. Jimmy Bob 5953. And by the way, Jesse, I do not have the ability to monitor the TikTok live questions, so feel free to pass them along. In our internal chat, if you'd like me to address any of them, Jesse. Just talking to the Weather Matrix, Jesse Farrell. So Philadelphia Metro, Eastern PA, we've had a couple of damaging wind reports down in central parts of Virginia. Hey, at my place earlier today, in central PA, I live in this dark green zone here, a little west of State College, and this is estimating 1.27 inches. When I left for work, I had a quick inch in about 40 minutes in my backyard weather station at my place. So that was a fast and furious inch plus there. But for the Philadelphia Metro, the severe risk is quite a bit lower right now. We do have some risk out for severe storms. Storms are congealing over eastern parts of Lancaster County. Moving into the Philadelphia Metro, it's going to be a little more intense north of town as opposed to in South Philly in the short term. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network, chatting with some people here on our YouTube chat. Questions about eastern Pennsylvania. Not exempt from the severe risk, but the main event is in the Midwest today. So this is very much a secondary risk area for severe up and down the I-95. The next 3 days, we're going to see severe storms in the Northeast escalating Some today, borderline severe. Some tomorrow, more likely to be severe. Friday is probably the biggest day in the Northeast with a severe weather risk. And you can see so far today, we've had some flash flooding in the Northeast and some wind reports, trees down into Buckingham County of Virginia, Pennsylvania County as well. But I really want to draw your attention farther west because the big story right now is a tornado threat moving into the western part of the Chicago metro. There's also a tornado risk present with the potential for a brief tornadic spin-up embedded within a squall line up into parts of Wisconsin and Fond du Lac County. But by population and also by overall just sheer risk, this severe threat involving a tornado warning in parts of Will County of Illinois and southern parts of Kendall County and northern and northeastern parts of Grundy County, Illinois. This is a nasty setup, and I'm going to bring up the velocity scan here because we're concerned about within the squall line, a brief tornadic touchdown could occur. And then we're going to check out Aaron Jajak's input here. We're going to check in with him. I'm going to go to the base velocity here just to give you the absolute, this is the true wind being measured by the radar just a few mere 100 feet above the radar site. We're close to the radar site here. And this is measuring 10 miles away from the radar site, just a couple hundred feet above the surface. 93 mile per hour gust. Most of that's going to mix down through these winds, the updrafts and the downdrafts. The downdrafts will carry that to the ground. And there is a very strong gust of wind here, but because the wind is not moving in a unified fashion, there are chunks of this squall line that have strong wind and then chunks that have less strong wind. If you picked a spot here between that transition zone, planted a windmill there, flipped it on its side or a paddle wheel or whatever you want to call it, you'd have strong wind that way, and not so strong wind just to the north. That, by default, would get this thing to spin up, and we could have the risk of a brief tornadic spin-up moving into the area near Shorewood. So that's your risk of a tornado moving through this area, Shorewood to Crest Hill, and it's racing east to the western suburbs of Chicago. Let's go to Aaron Jajak now, joining us live from Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is a widespread severe weather risk zone. In fact, as I toss it to you here, Aaron, I'm going to switch over to the map that shows our risk for this evening, and we've got a sizable risk here in Minneapolis. You were on the prowl north of the border yesterday, so tell us about what you experienced yesterday and what you're seeing and expecting tonight, Aaron.
Yeah, yesterday we had a severe weather setup, a severe weather outbreak across Canadian prairies of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then a little further south down into North Dakota, and I was up in Manitoba chasing those supercells. I went across the prairie there. We did see there were some tornadoes, and a tornado in Saskatchewan. Thankfully, in Manitoba, it was mainly a wind event. We didn't see tornadoes there, but now I've dropped here into the Midwest, the upper Mississippi Valley. I'm just southeast of Minneapolis right now, in the extreme southeastern corner of Minnesota. As you can see behind me, there is some puffy clouds back behind me, and these are some cells that are starting to try and form just off to my east. And this line of storms actually goes pretty well to the south here. I'm making my way to the south towards Rochester right now. Now, we did have some storms come through earlier today. It's kind of put a little bit of a tricky forecast here for today with trying to track down where these storms are going to be, the potent storm. It does look like the biggest tornado threat's going to be a little further south of me down in southern Iowa, but we are tracking storms here in northern Iowa and points in the east today. I'll likely, after I get down to Rochester, be making my way to the east and southeast, maybe down towards Davenport, watching for those storms that form off to the west. I think they're already starting to form a little closer to the Kansas City metro, moving off to the northeast. Potentially an outflow boundary left over from those morning storms there. That could be a focal point for tornadoes, strong tornadoes down there. But we'll be on the prowl here this afternoon into the evening, tracking storms for you guys. Back to you, Geoff.
All right, we appreciate Aaron Jajak. Be safe out there. Aaron, he puts on a lot of miles, and a lot of people don't realize this, but Canada documents more tornadoes than any other country in the world except for the U.S. So it's the U.S. and Canada. And if you look at the map here, again, it's no surprise. We talk about severe weather events and, We got the Great Plains. We talk about Tornado Alley, and many of you know that extends north into the Dakotas, and weather doesn't respect political boundaries. The Great Plains continue north into Canada. So, again, J-Jack there captures some amazing stuff. But we want to get into the details here for Chicago. And, again, we're continuing to track this severe threat. We have now the issuance of, and for good reason, a destructive severe thunderstorm warning because of higher-end wind gust potential embedded within this widespread squall line racing into Romeoville, Illinois, areas like Woodridge. We're getting into the highly populated part of the Chicago metro. And still, I want to get eyes again on this velocity scan as well, just because things can change so fast. And the character of this has not changed. With screaming wind coming in, I'm going to go back to the base velocity, which is not subtracting the storm movements out of the equation. And again, the risk is there for a brief tornadic spin-up into the central and kind of east central part of the squall line, right over Interstate 55 right now. If there is a tornado, it would be right over I-55 approaching Joliet and Lockport. In fact, as we speak, the Weather Service trimmed down their warning just to basically reflect that. Remember, it was in effect farther west as well. Basically giving people west of Birds the all clear. But I-55 and eastbound still under that tornado threat and screaming wind out there for the entire Chicago metro. And if it's not there for you now, it's coming. And if you have kids at home in Chicago, maybe you're working and, they're home for summer or what have you, you give them a heads up that we've got some intense wind coming in. And if they just stay away from the windows, they're going to be just fine. But stay inside, away from the windows. This is going to sneak up on people. It's a 65 mile per hour eastward movement and just racing east. So if we extrapolate the forward movement here, we're going to get a tremendous number of cities and towns here. But again, we're into a very populated area. I do want to check my numbers to make sure I'm giving you the best. And now, okay, I'm going to trim this down to 50 mile per hour forward movement. It's still booking east, but maybe I'll go 55 to just kind of split the difference between some of these recent measured movements here for this storm. So again, Joliet, you can see it's on the map far to the east. Well, you're about to get this here in less than 4 minutes. There's a hint of processing time for any radar, whether local media calls it live or not. There's a hint of processing time between the pulse going out and coming back and the graphics displaying that. So you might lose a fraction of a minute there. This is coming in so fast that that's a factor here when we do take these measurements. In fact, from where I drew it, that's already outdated. So let's take a look at this here. The rain's picking up in Joliet right now, but if we take it to, I'm going to go 55 miles per hour, and you could see this is moving into Orland Park at 14 minutes. The radar takes a moment to scan at different elevations and so forth. So by the time it returns to the same elevation angle to scan what we're showing you, a moment of time passes. And Oak Forest in 19 minutes. We're looking at 3:57 Central Time for the arrival time there. This is going to be booking it into Chicago, a huge population center. Let's check on our friends up in to the area of Milwaukee, and here you're into this a little earlier, obviously. Milwaukee radar data showing it's a little more ragged here. We had some interference from these guys that developed out in advance of the main squall line. So that's going to be a little chaotic here with some of the cell interactions, and we might see a waterspout form offshore here with some of these cell interactions and mergers. But the screaming straight line wind is occurring right now in Milwaukee. Let's take a look at the recent reports here. And I think the Weather Service in Milwaukee is probably real busy with issuing warnings that they may not be prioritizing local storm reports here at the moment. But we're going to see a slew of these come in. It's inevitable that a lot of people in the Chicago and Milwaukee metros are seeing some very strong winds here. So I think that after this moves out over the lake, we're going to see a big batch of local storm reports reflect what's actually going on there. While we're here, quick look at some outages. And Kayla, if you can hear me, if you don't mind updating the watches graphic, I do want to show a new watch here, 10 p.m. Central Time, newly issued watch, but I can play this forward to give you at least the previously issued ones. Chicago under a severe thunderstorm watch until 10 p.m. So you're one with that southernmost watch. It's kind of fuzzy math here between the Weather Service issuing a few polygons, filling in the gaps between. But the message is, if you're anywhere from the international border up in far northern Minnesota, all the way down to central Illinois near I-70, just north of Effingham, you have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect. And that's going to be an issue here for us this evening. And here are some of the earlier wind gust reports, including an 88-mile-per-hour gust that was reported in Darlington, Wisconsin, and Livingston, Lancaster, Wisconsin, facing some of that as well. Quick word before you go to break here on the AccuWeather Network. Here's tomorrow's map. We've got big concerns about tomorrow in Chicago. And Chicago, you're going to face a nasty, severe storm with fierce wind in the next few minutes, next 15 minutes or so, next 20 minutes. Tomorrow, we've got a heightened tornado risk and damaging wind gust risk as well. So again, here's tonight's map, not to confuse things tonight versus tomorrow, but we got back-to-back days with severe weather, a big problem in the Midwestern U.S., and some severe weather in the Northeast as well. Stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network with severe weather in Chicago and Milwaukee. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a break, and I'm going to hop over to our YouTube Live comments section here. Don't want to miss anything. We appreciate all your comments, and I'm sorry that we can't answer all of them. Some of you may be asking, when will this hit my town, my specific town? And sometimes we get inundated with some of those. We encourage you to download the AccuWeather app. It's a free download. It is the best weather app out there. We have an army of real human forecasters who are working on the forecast day and night. You come in here at 3 in the morning on Christmas, and there's a small army of people here. I was impressed by that. In fact, there are more people here at that time than at, say, 5 or 6 p.m. sometimes on weekdays, just because there's a big appetite for weather information at the beginning of the day. Again, we have, actual human forecasters giving you what AI and what computer modeling on its own, without human intervention, can't give you. So that's a big... a big asset, a big reason to use the AccuWeather app. Again, with the AccuWeather app, we have that MinuteCast feature, and that will give you the sense of when the storm will arrive for your area and the intensity of the storm arriving for your location. And in the winter, different precip types and so forth. All these things, highly valuable information, and that will answer some of the questions about when will it reach your area and so forth. So again, as we're in this commercial break, catching up on a couple of quick things here. Forgive the brief delay, just making sure I'm not missing anything major here on the social channels and so forth that we need to be getting out there. Is Joliet going to experience a tornado? Mel, do you know? That's a good question. Somebody asked Brian Empfinger, do we know where Brian is located? He was up there earlier. I'll put you on the spot, I know. Okay. Yeah. DeKalb County of Illinois. It says Missouri. Okay. Oh, okay. He's on this cell. Yeah, this is a newly issued tornado warning. We may want to take that. That's a good question. So, DeKalb County, Missouri, this is another cell. Just recently warned, and we got 2 more tornado warnings just being issued. And one of these is confirmed now. This is really ramping up here. As I loop this, you'll see these 2 warning polygons just popping up. We're going to need another radar site for this as well. I think it's time to swap something out so we can get Kansas City in there. What can we afford to lose? This is a little bit of the stuff that we usually do during commercial breaks. And we'll be back on the AccuWeather Network here in about 2 minutes. So I think we can... Let's get rid of... I'm going to message Kayla with this here real quick. We have one of our graphics meteorologists. We're going to swap out Duluth and add Kansas City. All right. Thank you guys for bearing with me. We get a lot done during our breaks usually, but we want to give you as best information as we can here, kind of behind the curtain during our YouTube Live. So yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that to our friend who asked about Brian Naperville, Joliet, all these areas facing nasty storms. Somebody's wondering, is there a tornado in Joliet? We're not aware of a confirmed tornado in Joliet, but there is the risk of a tornado in Joliet, basically right about now. But screaming straight line winds that may feel like a tornado for some. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. Just talking to some folks here on the YouTube Live. People wondering about Naperville. Scary storm, they're saying, in the Chicago suburbs. Joliet, questions about, is there a tornado there? Well, there's a tornado warning, and there's some screaming straight-line winds. No confirmation of a tornado here. Most likely, if there was a tornado with this cell, it actually would be out of the polygon. In fact, the Weather Service just allowed that tornado warning to expire. So in Joliet, at this moment, the risk of a tornado is dropping, but it's still windy, and you got some nasty storms, and you may have lost some trees here in the past few minutes. The worst part of this storm is now exiting. It will be exiting Joliet, but you have a destructive severe thunderstorm in the area right now, and you'll notice the strongest winds racing into Mokena. Get ready for it. Tinley Park, Orland Park. Here's a new wind gust report. And this was a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust report in Plainfield at 3:36, 9 minutes ago. Small branches down. Glad they're small. This could be worse than that for some. So that's the biggest issue there. So no tornado at the moment in Joliet. Was there one a few minutes ago? It's possible. Most likely case it was straight line winds and perhaps not a tornado. But we do want to take you to an area where there is the likelihood of a tornado. We are tracking storms to the north. Thankfully, the Weather Service up in Milwaukee has allowed that somewhat less impressive looking tornado warning to expire. We were looking at the potential for a brief tornadic spin up in Fond du Lac County. But let's go south. Here's the big concern. We want to take you down into parts of Missouri here with two separate ongoing tornado threats. And Brian M. Okay, Guy standing by. Let's loop Guy Pearson into this conversation right now. Guy, we have, again, a lot of attention on the storms in Chicago and Milwaukee for good reason, but also a confirmed tornado near the Missouri-Iowa line and a couple of other cells that are being warned as possibly tornadic, one in Iowa and then one down to the south into an area including DeKalb County where Brian Emfinger, one of our chasers, is providing some pretty photogenic scenes. So what's your biggest concern right now here, Guy?
Yeah, certainly with the individual cells that we're seeing, back to the west there, from a tornadic perspective, that's going to be the most likely area. So across northern Missouri, where we've had that chance for the clouds to clear out and everything, the energy is building back up. We have these individual or discrete cells, maybe some of the thunderstorm areas overtaking other areas. That also allows for, some extra turning of the winds and things like that could help tornadic development there. So these are certainly areas, and just within the last 20 minutes as I've been watching things, it certainly started to ramp up. There's certainly wind velocity signatures in there that are showing some pretty good rotation and some tighter rotation that we would typically expect. So that, from a tornadic perspective, those are certainly the storms I'm most concerned with at the moment. And as far as a more widespread severe, then yes, the front of the line across Illinois and everything else.
All right. And Guy, forgive the clumsiness there with the radar. Right now, at the moment, we are importing level 2 radar for Kansas City, and I'd like to get that for Des Moines as well. It's not in the system yet. We have 6 spots in the batting order, so we have to kind of swap from one to the other. But so that's why I can't really bring up rotation at the moment. Yep. We're going to do that here momentarily. But confirmed tornado there, Mercer County, Putnam County, and then Brian Emfinger, his view was of the cell down in DeKalb County and Davis County. Do we still have that up? Okay. Yeah, in the bottom left there, Guy. I'm not sure if you can. I think you could probably see it. What's your take on that? At the moment now I'm seeing it as well. I'm seeing the YouTube version. It's a little bit delayed. Anything that jumps to your mind when you see that, coupled with the appearance of this storm here? I see certainly a hook, even on the low-res radar mosaic. Right. It's filtered out near Maysville. Yeah,
certainly Maysville area, or just areas north of that. The storms here are generally moving towards the east-northeast. So certainly anybody on the north side of Maysville there. But the image down below with a little bit of delay, a little bit tough to see exactly what's going on there, but certainly what we're seeing on the radar in that area is certainly concerning. The main show that you've been talking about for the majority of time here, certainly if you're in the path of this squall line, and certainly it's running out of land here before it gets to Lake Michigan. But if you're still in the path of this, certainly damaging strong straight line winds, certainly in the 60 to 70 mile an hour range. I know or a little bit earlier we had even some pockets of up to 80 miles an hour. So, you start talking about 70 mile an hour winds and things like that. That's when trees certainly start toppling over and even potentially power poles by themselves without trees falling into power poles. So, we've sort of seen this over the last couple nights as well. You get into a line of storms like this, and there's a little bit of extra wind that sort of mixes out at times. We've seen wind reports off and on over the last couple of days in the excess of, measured 90 plus miles an hour. So if you happen to get into the right scenario, you could see some strong winds. For the most part, the northern end up here, you probably are just looking mainly 60 to maybe up to 70 as it's approaching or moving through Milwaukee into the east. And then farther south would be that area that would be a little bit higher winds as far as what's concerning to us.
I have a sense that the Weather Service in Milwaukee and Chicago will be pumping out a lot of local storm reports eventually. They're probably just real tied up right now with the storms themselves, given the population here in Milwaukee facing this fierce wind. Guy, what was your take on that northern tornado warning up into Fond du Lac County? I wasn't real impressed with it, but there was a little cell merger. What was your take?
Yeah, anytime you get the quick little cell merger like that, all through my years of meteorology here, it doesn't take much sometimes. You get the main line interacting with just another little leftover boundary, sort of what we're seeing here, right on the city icon of Wisconsin Rapids there to the east, and then Wausau to the farther north. You just get little kinks along the way, or you get an intersecting boundary with the main line, then running right across that boundary, or new thunderstorm development, and the whole thing together, you've got different winds at different levels. And sometimes it comes together just right for a quick little spin up that, probably isn't on the ground more than a couple minutes, but it is one of those that can happen quite frequently given the right conditions.
All right. Well, we appreciate all your insight as well. Good stuff there. Guy Pearson from AccuWeather's Severe Weather Center in Wichita, Kansas. Guy, thanks for your expertise. All right. We are continuing to track some of these storms. We have transitioned into a brief break, and I'm just checking on a couple of items here so we can give you the best coverage possible. Yes. All right. Thank you, Kayla. She's putting Des Moines in there as well. And I wonder if we can get Green Bay in as well. I wonder what we can afford. What can we afford to lose? Just thanks for bearing with me here for our viewers. Maybe this is a tough one here because we have Davenport that's going to be in demand eventually. Maybe we can get rid of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and put Green Bay in as well. I think given that situation, we may have to swap some back and forth. Thank you guys for being patient here on our YouTube Live and just kind of bringing you behind the curtain. But as we stay commercial free, that's just the nature of what we're doing here. And when we were talking about swapping radar sites, I want to be able to give you the high resolution, highest quality radar site imagery that we can. And here is the newly updated watches graphic with a tornado watch from Salina, Kansas to Ottumwa, Iowa. 3 separate severe thunderstorm watches. So a huge chunk of the upper Midwest and parts of the plains under severe threats right now. The network's coming back in a minute here. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. As you went to break, you were listening to Guy Pearson from AccuWeather Severe Weather Center in Wichita, Kansas. And Guy was talking about the risk for these little cell interactions that can lead to brief tornadic spin-ups. We're seeing some of that in various areas right now. But here is the updated watch graphic, and you can see a tornado watch is in effect from north central Kansas all the way to south central Iowa. Severe thunderstorm watches are in effect here from the international border all the way down to central Illinois, almost to Interstate 70. And as we step into an area where we have a few different tornadic concerns. We can show you the most recent imagery here from Kansas City. And Brian Empfinger, Storm Chaser Brian Empfinger, is out there on this cell here in the area of DeKalb County, Missouri. And as we switch over to the high-res radar data out of Kansas City, I want to bring it up here. All right, it looks like I'm just checking a few different radar sites here. I think that we're still waiting for radar data to come in for one, but we can take you up to the north, and man, we're just waiting for radar at this point for things to load as they come into the system. But we are tracking some ongoing tornado threats here, and with the National Radar Mosaic, at least I could show you that we're facing DeKalb County and Davis County with tornado warnings. A confirmed tornado warning from Mercer into Putnam County and Decatur into Wayne counties. But by population, the biggest risk area here is into the Chicago metro. I'm going to bring up the high res out of Chicago again. And as we loop that here, you can see the ongoing severe threats rolling right into this area with tenacious wind moving into Chicago proper. This might be the biggest storm you've seen so far this year, moving into Cook County. Stay with us here on the network. All right, went to a break there, and I need to do a little bit of behind-the-scenes work to swap out a few radar sites here. Kayla did the first part, and I need to swap the remainder. So Duluth out. We're putting Kansas City in. I realize this may not be the best TV here, but we need to give you this information here, and there's no other way to do it right now than this way. So Kansas City, Missouri, we're going to save that. And you know what? As I do this here, I can show you what the radar imagery looks like. So this is the first radar imagery that we're bringing into the system for Kansas City. And while that's in there, just so you don't have to be too patient, I can give you a look at the overall velocity scan. And I'm seeing this at the same time as you here for the first time. So this is the storm that Brian Empfinger is on. And when I see this, it's a pretty clear-cut story. Radar site directly to the south. And here we have some strong outbound wind here to the east, inbound wind to the west. So that is your couplet. And this tornado threat is moving. I'm going to bring in a few more small-scale city labels here into areas very close to Santa Rosa and near Weatherby. There's your tornado moving through this area. Eastern DeKalb into Davis County, and that's the view there, the bottom right. That's Brian Empfinger's shot there. Low-hanging clouds, the wind is blowing, the rain is falling, and you can see a low-hanging base. And if there's rotation there is rotation within the storm, but he's looking into the base of this storm here, and that is the storm here we're tracking. So you can see it in various dimensions there. His view, and then the view on radar. I'm going to bring up another radar site here. Well, first, before we do that, we're getting awfully far from the radar site here, but this is a confirmed tornado near Terre Haute, Missouri. Terre Haute, Missouri. Strong outbound wind near Newton, Missouri. Weak wind on the west side, so by default, here's your area of rotation. Turning the reports on. I want to hop down into another resource to see if I'm missing anything. We do have some reports here. They're not popping up in our system, but they will soon. There it is. Just popped up. So Mercer, Missouri. Public recorded video of a tornado on the ground. And that was at 2030 UTC. So subtract 5 hours for Central Time. We're looking at 3:30. That was 28 minutes ago, 3:30 Central Time. Also, there was a report farther west of, at the same time, all right, so there's a correction to that report. The true plot should be a little farther south, and I think that aligns with my interpretation of the radar, too. So the Weather Service made a mistake, or somebody made a mistake, perhaps issuing that report as they did, and it should be farther to the south. The proper location for this is farther south, near Princeton. So that is the update. There was a report and then a correction to the report issued by the National Weather Service. So that's the location here. The proper location for that was near Princeton. And before the network comes back, I'm going to quickly just take a brief minute. I want to do this as cleanly as I can. I want to bring in another radar site. We're going to swap out La Crosse, and Green Bay is the new one. Kayla, thank you for doing this here. Kayla's doing the legwork on the back side of the system, and I just have to carry this to my own computer here. If she did that, then I would lose control of this, and we'd go on a little adventure. But this will allow us to see that other tornado-warned storm to the north. All right. So that's the idea here. 10 new graphic here to show you some power outages here. As Kayla's working hard in the background here to bring you that. And I'm going to show this to the network viewers as well. But the number of outages escalating, lots and lots of them in Wisconsin. The network's going to rejoin us here in just a few seconds. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We've been updating our system here. We have the ability to show you some areas of rotation in other spots that are a little bit peripheral to the main focus being Chicago, the third biggest city in the country, facing a tenacious wind right now with this storm moving in. The strongest storm probably so far this year. If I jog my memory, I can't remember a convective thunderstorm environment this strong in Chicago, bringing us winds of this magnitude so far this year. I know you've had a few severe events, but we have gusts of wind 65 miles per hour moving right in, and there you can see the Chicago Midway Airport cam looking nasty there. Plainfield, a 70 mile per hour gust out there, and on Plainfield, I should say. Plainfield, Illinois, 70 mile per hour gust there, 60 to 70 estimated there in some spots. But I'm going to pull the map out a little bit and give you a little bit of a different look at things. In Milwaukee, here the high-res radar data showing that the worst of this is in progress right over Milwaukee, and frankly, the strongest winds offshore now. So any boaters over Lake Michigan may have a life-threatening situation there. With very, very strong winds and the risk of capsizing and so forth. Hopefully nobody's out there unless they're in a massive lake freighter and they can sustain something like this. Now, let's go to the north here. The Green Bay radar site is in. We can show you the high-res radar data for this rotating cell that is bringing us the risk of, again, a possible tornado. The velocity scan showing us from this perspective, and again, we're looking at this from the perspective of Green Bay to the east-southeast. So what's that mean? That means the red outbound wind is moving like this, and the green is moving in this fashion. So I'm going to, I don't think I can loop this much. The data's only been in for maybe 2 frames, just 1 frame at this point. Tornado threat in progress there into areas like Marathon. And it's not a photogenic area of rotation that you might expect to see on a Great Plains supercell, but there could be multiple areas of rotation here with this in the area near Nutterville, north and south of Nutterville, into parts of Wisconsin. Taking you farther south, we're going to go to Tony Law back here in just a moment, but briefly to the south, down into an area south of Des Moines, Iowa. We're tracking a few different cells. One of these was confirmed earlier, and I mentioned that here's the correction to that report. Princeton, Missouri. This is the accurate plot for the location of this one tornado report from 4 miles east of Mercer. The video of a tornado on the ground there, that was back at 3:30 Central Time. That cell now is moving to the east, and best bet might be perhaps the view from Des Moines, Iowa. What can I get rid of here? I wanted to bring the Des Moines view in. And I think at this point I'm going to replace Davenport with Des Moines. Forgive me for just a little bit of just a brief pause as I reset the radar here. But this is going to give us the way to look at this shot here, and I can track it more successfully here for the future. Overall, this area of rotation, there's a very obvious signal from north to south, even looking at this pretty high up into the atmosphere, near Lucerne and approaching midway in northern parts of Missouri. This is in Mercer County, Missouri. Look out, a nasty couplet, a storm with a history of producing tornadoes moving into the east from Putnam County. This is Putnam County, Missouri, barely east-southeast of Lucerne. If you're in an area near Lucerne, Midway, Quinn, Unionville, take shelter. You have a tornado moving your way, a likely tornado. And then heading further. Oh, Tony's in Unionville. All right, well, let's go to Tony right now. He's on that cell. I didn't know which cell he was on. Tony Lawback has stepped south of the Iowa-Missouri line. You're on this very cell right now, Tony. So what are you seeing?
Well, Geoff, we are south of Unionville by about 5 or 6 miles now. We're planted, what's the highway here? Highway 5. So we're sitting right now between Lemons and Unionville here. Obviously, if you're seeing on the stream here, and I'm gonna play with my stream camera here. So if you want to take this in the big box, you can see I've got trees between me and the base of this storm. We've got peaks of it right in here. I'm going to zoom in and kind of do a little pan. You see, you can kind of see defrost, the little lightening up just above the tree line, and then I move over, and the trees kind of start blocking, but it's a little lower in that area. So that is the area right now we're watching. Unfortunately, northern Missouri not known for the great views that we see in Kansas, but that would be the area of concern right off to our due west. So we're going to sit patiently and wait here. I did have a chaser friend of mine, Aaron, who was on the storm originally, was a pretty stout-looking tornado with that originally. So this definitely has produced a pretty significant looking. I don't know if it was necessarily strong, but certainly the image I was sent certainly proves that. But again, if I zoom in tight here, you kind of see what I'm going to call the southern edge of the wall cloud area. And again, it just happens to be behind the tallest grove of trees. And despite my best efforts with the defrost, I cannot get this to defrost. So, Geoff, I'm going to toss it back to you. I'm going to keep you in my ear, though, because once this starts to kind of get a better view here, where that area of lowering is at, that is what we're going to be watching here. And again, that matches up very well with what we're seeing on the radar. So we're in a very good spot. We've got an easterly escape option as we need to as well. But if I were in Unionville right now, I would definitely be concerned. I know you're not under a tornado warning just yet, but this is heading your direction. So if you're in Unionville, this is an early warning. We're giving you a bonus here on AccuWeather. Go ahead and start thinking about taking your tornado precautions. This storm has produced a tornado. Visually right now, it looks like it could be producing again. Radar certainly gives it that indication. As Geoff mentioned, we're a little high up right now. So this is where it's important for us, the chasers, to have eyes on the ground, because now we're seeing the areas low enough that the radar here cannot get to. So, Geoff, I'm going to toss it back to you. We're going to keep an eye on this area. If we see anything, I'm going to get in Mel's ears, and we'll get back on TV right away.
All right, good stuff there, Tony. We appreciate that report. I should have gone to you sooner. I didn't know which storm you were on. That's good stuff. These are not moving as fast as those out there near Chicago or Milwaukee. Closer to 25 or 30 mile per hour movement. But there's the latest couplet scan, and I think Tony probably picked the best of all the storms today. This one at the moment has the strongest rotation, so hats off to him for getting in position here. And again, this is a tough forecast. We're going to go from the community of Midway, Missouri, up to Midway, Chicago, to the airport, because up this way we are facing some nasty storms, and man, the view in Chicago has been okay. We can't see it right now. There it is. Yeah, there's nothing to see. It's just really nasty storms. So this is the view at the sky deck, and so we're up on the higher floors of the Wills Tower in Chicago, and the low clouds are racing below this altitude, so it's a pretty photogenic shot there, but it's interesting to see. And I'm going to bring up the high-res radar data so you get the view. And there it is. I mean, you can see the difference between those two radar images. This is what's really going on, racing right into Chicago. This is the nastiest part of the storm. Today, we're going to see another one tomorrow probably in Chicago that may even be maybe a little bit different than this, with more of a tornado risk and less of a straight-line wind risk. But right now, nasty storms, and let's see what's going on at the airport, if any new observations are in. We're seeing some pretty impressive winds. 62 mile per hour gust there at a personal weather station in Glenview. I think we're going to see more of these reports come in soon. In Woodridge, DuPage County National Weather Service employee estimating 65 mile per hour gust earlier. Naperville power lines down. By the way, I don't think our viewers on the network have seen this yet. We've got a lot of power outages. Look at this. We just went orange there in Illinois, now over 50,000. So between Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, and Kansas, we're looking at about, some quick math here, about 168,000 addresses. Let's go to Tony Lawback now. Again, let's go back to Tony here. Tony, what do you see?
Geoff, we've got a confirmed tornado on the ground here. This is going to be just to the southwest of Unionville here. This area of rotation we were just talking about minutes ago got very rapid motion. We have seen in the trees there's definitely a rotation, very strong rotation. You can kind of see just above the tree line there some of the clouds. This tornado is seemingly a very large tornado. We could be talking about a wedge here. Again, we don't have full visual, but we've got very intense motion right now. I'm gonna go with this, folks in Unionville. Again, you are not under the warning at this point. You need to start taking shelter here. This storm likely producing a tornado. You see it there right on the stream here. Sorry about the fog on the window here, but here, just to zoom out, you can see the structure of this storm here with the big lowering. Now, again, over here on the south side, you see the motion in those clouds. That is very intense rotation, likely on the south side of what could be a very large tornado here. You're seeing just plenty of motion, again, with the trees blocking us here. This tornado, or the area that we're watching right now, Geoff, likely is going to pass just to our north. So again, northbound Highway 5 going up US 136. Again, this is taking aim right at the Unionville area right now. So this is a potentially large tornado that is ongoing. Certainly has the motion in the clouds that would give me enough reason to tell folks in Unionville to take cover. Again, I cannot fully see behind the trees at the moment, but plenty of years experience. You're talking about good rotation in the clouds. I can see the motion, very, very strong motion in the clouds. We definitely have something here to be concerned about. And again, you're looking at a very wide area here where this potential tornado could be existing. Again, this could be a very large potential tornado. Certainly the radar would confirm rotation in the storm. And based on what I'm seeing, Geoff, I would say we definitely probably have a tornado on the ground at the moment, if not very, very close.
All right, Tony. Good shots there. You're in a good spot for this one, Tony. And I agree. Unionville, don't wait for the National Weather Service to issue a tornado warning. Take shelter now as this is moving in. It's moving in the east, maybe a smidge north of due east, but primarily east at about 25 to 30 miles per hour. We made a radar swap. So it is certainly pulling north of due east, but as we get a little bit of a better heading on this one, maybe about 50, 55, 60 degrees on the heading. So Unionville, you're in a very dangerous spot. And by the way, you can see the history of this storm. This tornado report was actually the correct one. This one was an erroneous plot. So again, we had a tornado plot earlier. This lifted and then touched back down. And now we have Tony reporting a likely large tornado there in the area near Midway approaching Unionville. So Putnam County, Missouri, tornado in progress here in that area. So there's Tony's feed on the bottom left. Then Brian Emfinger, I have reason to believe that he is probably still on, I'm not sure which cell he's on. I'm going to switch. Okay. Thank you. Far Northern. We are in a break right now. I'm just updating the headlines here that are scrolling on the bottom. And forgive the brief delay there, but hey, we're glad that you're with us here on YouTube and TikTok Live, and we are continuing to roll with a severe weather risk that's impacting a lot of people, many people here. I'm going to switch back over to the Kansas City radar site as we head a little farther southwest. I think the best shot of the one that Tony's on is from the Des Moines, Iowa radar site. But Tony, here, let's go back to you. There, you're getting a good shot of this tornado.
Yeah, Geoff, we're looking at a confirmed tornado. We just received numerous reports from other chasers as well, a little bit further east. You could see it clearly there over the trees. This is a large tornado in progress right now. Again, this is coming for the Unionville area. No doubt in my mind right now, without question, we are definitely looking at a very large tornado. You're seeing this here live. Again, this is Unionville. So folks in Unionville, I know we're going to be talking very close here. And again, we might get lucky and this might pass off to the north. That is some good news here, but we never want to assume. A lot of times these stronger storms certainly can produce tornadoes that turn right. So Unionville, absolutely, 100%. Take shelter. There's another tornado right now actually forming just off. So this is a satellite tornado that just came down here. So we've got two potential areas of rotation in progress right now, the large tornado and then this satellite that's just come down here to the south of the main one, which, again, you can see very clearly is on the ground. We've got kind of the Dust Bowl debris. So two tornadoes, again, the satellite that's just come down. And again, this is a very large tornado. We're going to have a really good view of this here in a second, Geoff. So let's stick with this for now. I don't think we move from this because, again, we've got it on here. And this, again, this is a big tornado. Again, we're looking, we're about 5-6 miles south of Unionville right now. This is stout. This is certainly one of the more stout tornadoes. It's been a rough year for me, this easily is the biggest tornado I've seen so far this year. So this looks very, very powerful. Again, the radar velocity, the couplet of this now, this is going to put this just, I can't tell what the name of that town might be, if it is a town, but it's over 136 right now. This is going to, oh boy, this is going to be close for Unionville, but you're right, Geoff. I think this probably is going to head north of the Unionville area. So that, I'm hoping that's going to be good news. Might be trying to kind of fan out right now. It's hard to tell. It's not as girthy as it was a second ago. But
Tony,
that is down.
Yeah, if you're rejoining us here on the AccuWeather Network, we're looking at area near Unionville, Missouri. This is in far northern Missouri, and storm chaser and AccuWeather meteorologist Tony Lawback here live tracking that. You can see the tornado. We're in Putnam County, so we are right up against the Iowa-Missouri line. And Tony, I was looking at about 84-mile-per-hour gate-to-gate shear from the Kansas City perspective, and even we're into the mid-90s there from the Des Moines, Iowa perspective, north to south. There it is. So, Tony, I want to give it back to you. I think you may have stepped outside, but you may be on headset.
Yeah, I'm on headset, Geoff. You got me?
Yeah, we hear you. It's a great shot. We clearly see the funnel there, and you're not far from this one. Looks like the very small town of Midway may be the town west of Unionville where this is right now.
Yeah, I would say it's west of Unionville. It does look to be lifting right now, so that is some good news. This was, again, though, we had it at its peak. This thing was stout. You can still see, again, I know the contrast isn't the greatest here, but there's still obviously debris on the ground. This is now a cone, a full-fledged cone tornado. I'm not going to say it's roping out. It certainly is definitely weaker or certainly smaller looking than it was, but you can kind of see it now. Maybe trying to lift, but that is definitely a stout funnel. I don't know if it's going to come back down in full force or not. If another area of rotation is going to take over, but now it's full cone again. So this thing is again still just absolutely going to town right now. This does not appear to be doing anything to weaken itself. So take this seriously, folks. This is the warning verification. This is exactly why we're out there. Radar's not going to pick this up. And you're relying 100% on the reports that we're giving right now. And again, this is a confirmed on the ground right now tornado that we are seeing. And this is now, again, going to be due west of Unionville. And it's transitioning. You can kind of see the top of it there going, like pulling away from the base of the funnel, as that funnel is kind of getting dragged at the base. But it's roping out for sure, I would say right now. So that is some good news. At least it looks like it's trying to weaken. I don't know if it's going to fully do it or not. But again, you're seeing this, you're watching this. Very unique process here. As you can kind of see, we got some traffic in front of us here, some of the locals. But you can see, again, the top of the vortex is dragging the funnel at the ground. But this is still going on. Typically, when you rope out, the whole tornado gets skinny. What looks like is happening kind of here is from the ground up. It's kind of starting to weaken, but there's still ground contact, Geoff. I could still see a faint debris swirl at the base of this tornado. But what are we on now? About 5 minutes? This thing's been ongoing for about 5 minutes?
Yeah, at least.
Definitely not as strong looking as it was.
And Tony, just
we're going to stick with it. Obviously, we're going to have to reposition. So.
Okay. And, just tangential to that storm, and I have radar zoomed out a little bit so we can see that with its sibling to the north, but we have another tornado confirmed up into southern parts of Iowa from another storm near Humeston, Iowa. So here we are with twin cells bringing tornadoes. Local fire chief in Garden Grove, Iowa, 3:54 Central Time, reported several intermittent tornado touchdowns. Here was an earlier report, but separate from the reports, Tony Lawback showing us just west of Unionville the ongoing tornado situation there in Putnam County of Missouri. So one risk of a tornado, one tornado touchdown up into Wayne County, Iowa, and technically touchdown there in Decatur County, but now the cell to the north of the state line in Wayne County, Iowa, bringing us a continuation of a tornado threat there. As we look at the velocity scan, I'm going to show you that this cell, again, that was a bit ago, about 20 25 minutes ago when the fire chief reported a tornado touchdown. But again, likely area of rotation here, moving through an area east of Houston there into Wayne County, where the one tornado threat continues. But the more obvious couplet here that Tony Lawback has been documenting for us there in the bottom right shot, there it is. Strong outbound wind and strong inbound wind between Midway and Unionville. And as we loop this, we are looking at, again, this is going to be a dangerously close pass to Unionville. Look out there into Unionville and Howland. If anybody's anywhere in Unionville or even a few miles south, take shelter. Take shelter for this storm. The most likely case is it brushes Unionville on the north side. But even if you're down as far south as Lemons, you don't want to risk it here. Just take shelter within this confirmed tornado warning. The Weather Service has issued, again, that confirmed tornado warning now to follow the confirmation from Tony and others. And this looks nasty. I'm going to bring up the correlation coefficient to see. And again, there's a slightly lower signal here where on this scale, we're looking at messy data, admittedly, but there might be some debris being cast up into the sky. If this was seeing stuff that was all the same size and shape, it would be in the deep maroon, the deep red. But with the lower values there, that's where you see the signals that it's not just rain. We're seeing some other debris lofted up into the atmosphere. Reflectivity scan, not a surprise to see the notch there, but here's the main story, obviously showing us this obvious couplet here. And even where the data is very clear, we're looking at 59 plus 77, be around 136 mile per hour gate-to-gate contrast there. So really fierce wind. Rotating, contrasting, conflicted winds with this obvious rotation that does indeed continue. Another perspective on things here before we go to break on the AccuWeather network, just switching over to another angle here. Here we have the Kansas City angle from the southwest. There you can see this is hitting it perhaps a little higher into the atmosphere, but also an obvious couplet there. And the correlation coefficient, we're hitting at this so high up that I think there might be some value to that, but it's not a very obvious signal. So stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue to track tornadoes in Missouri and Iowa and severe wind through Chicago. We are clear on the AccuWeather Network there, and we're dealing with, again, a pretty widespread severe weather risk. And again, it's a dangerous risk here across parts of southern Iowa, northern Missouri, into Illinois, and now the northwestern corner of Indiana getting its first severe warning because of the wind moving on in. Nasty setup over Lake Michigan, and then up into Wausau, Wisconsin. Let's revisit this cell. It's been a little bit, and we could take a look at that from the Green Bay perspective. Velocity scan showing what's going on to the east of Wausau. And, this is just, I don't want to diminish this, but compared to the tornado threats farther south, this is again, a risk for a brief tornadic spin up within a squall line. So nothing too obvious there within Marathon County of Wisconsin, but at times there was a couplet that is probably up this way now. It was a little stronger when it moved right through that area there east of Wausau. So again, the main event that we need to continue to track for population reasons, the Chicago metro. Fierce wind has moved through the city, and the strongest of the storm is now through Chicago, but now it's moving into areas near Gary, Indiana, and Chicago Heights, and areas to the south into southeastern Will County of Illinois, where the ongoing threat continues, and now a severe threat with wind into Lake County, Indiana, Porter County, Indiana, that I-80-90 stretch there. Nasty, nasty place to be right now with wind moving through the area of the Chicago metro. Heading farther south and west, we got a slew of tornado threats here in a very volatile place right now in southern Iowa and northern parts of Missouri. The AccuWeather Network's about to rejoin us here in about 10 seconds or so. Just going to show the power outages here. This is going to be a 2-minute hit with the network, and then we'll be able to take a look at some of your comments. All right, we have nasty stuff going on. Multiple tornadoes in progress in northern Missouri and southern parts of Iowa. 110,000 addresses in the dark in Illinois, 92,500 in Wisconsin. Between the two, that's 200,000 plus. But keep in mind, that's the number of electric meters. So we're looking at over 400,000 people, probably about 500,000 people in the dark right now, not getting electric service because of the ongoing severe wind event here severe wind event into parts of Illinois. We're getting more and more footage from Tony Lawback. He is chasing one tornadic storm in Unionville, Missouri. And as I pull the map away from Chicago, look at what's going on here in northern Missouri and southern parts of Iowa. A veritable Venn diagram of different warnings, some for severe winds, some for tornadoes, and it's just a nasty time. The purple warnings are ongoing confirmed tornadoes. 2 of them are confirmed right now. Let's take a look at this here from the perspective of the Kansas City radar site. Quick look at this southern cell here. Radar data is not looking that good right now, but it's just a bad frame. But the area of rotation is approaching Jamesport and north of Gallatin. Tornado confirmed in this area. And as we take you farther northeast, Tony Lawback is on this cell, and that's his view, bottom right. I'm sure we're going to talk to him here in a little bit with this ongoing severe threat. I'm going to switch over to the high-res radar data out of Des Moines, Iowa, and this is going to give us a slightly better view. It's just been showing a little more clearly this fierce wind, inbound versus outbound. So this is passing dangerously close to Unionville. There you can see the grain silos and so forth there. Very dark, ominous sky. Tornado threat continuing into Putnam County, Missouri, also north into Wayne County, Iowa, Monroe County as well. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a break here. That is a really photogenic shot there from Tony. Look at that sky with really impressive stuff. If we want to, well, actually also Chicago, just a view of what's going on in Chicago. Now we're seeing more and more of these reports get issued here with some fierce winds in Chicago. And look at the view. The visibility's improved in Chicago, but we want to get back to Tony here in just a minute. Midway measured a 72-mile-per-hour wind gust. Trees down in Chicago, but a 72-mile-per-hour wind gust at Chicago Midway. That's a problem in a very populated area. And as we pull the map out, I just want to see what else we can tell you about the Milwaukee action. Menominee Falls with some gusts of wind bringing trees down. Fond du Lac, trees down and so forth, down into Pleasant Prairie, 60-mile-per-hour winds. So the main event is obviously these tornado warnings now. As Chicago seeing an improvement to your visibility, life beginning to pick back up. There's Chicago Midway. The cam still works after that 72-mile-per-hour wind gust in Chicago at the Midway Airport. But Tony, here you are in the Unionville area, and you're getting some great shots of this storm just from a couple of mere miles away. Looks like you're in town right now. Is that right?
Yeah, we're kind of skirting on the south side of what I believe is the circulation. There's actually several areas of rotations. We're kind of in a risky spot right now. We're trying to get east of town. Again, I think the good news right now, at least as it stands, we are an RFD moving through town. So I do not think Unionville will see a tornado threat here in town, but there is definitely going to be some strong winds coming through. Potential RFD, that's smoke from a fire. That's not a tornado. Thank you for the heart attack, local guy. All right, so we are now eastbound. We've now turned eastbound. This is US 136. The area of rotation, my area of concern right now, sits north of town. Unionville, if you're watching us, if you're listening to us, stay put. This storm is coming through. You got strong winds in town right now. This is likely RFD, rear flank downdraft. This is the winds that wrap around the area of circulation around the tornado. So if you were in Unionville, stay put. Don't go anywhere. Don't try to get out. Don't try to look at this thing. Trust us when we tell you. You don't want to be outside in this right now. There is some lightning around as well. That could be an embarrassing thing to survive the tornado, only get picked off by lightning. But we are going to be eastbound here on 136. We're at the junction where 5 and 136 come together, and I'm hoping I can get a view down the street and see if there's anything on the ground to my north or not. The winds are really howling from the south, feeding into that area. It is very, very ominous back in there, but I can't confirm anything on the ground at the moment. But yes, again, this is going to be due north of Unionville. Unionville, a fairly large town, so it's going to be a couple minutes before you're clear of this particular cell. Unfortunately, Jeff, I see another one that has a developing couplet back behind this one, so even if you get through this one, you're going to have another one on the back. But, significant tornado earlier. Right now, again, hard to tell. We're in town. We're blocked by buildings and terrain, but it seems like the area of deepest concern right now is north of Unionville. Cannot confirm anything on the ground just with no visual. So we'll toss it back to you and get ourselves through town here.
All right. Well, be safe out there, Tony. As you were mentioning the rear flank downdraft, I'm trying to illustrate that here. I want to zoom this out a little bit, but the red is where you're seeing the movement away from the radar site. So that's within the back end of the storm. That's what's racing into Unionville. Meanwhile, you got this inflow. So you can see obvious rotation continuing right over the area of Unionville, Missouri. Now, just in a few seconds, the AccuWeather Network is going to go to a brief commercial. Actually, it's going to be rejoining us here. I got backwards there. All right, thanks for rejoining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We're tracking a tornado in the area immediately north of Unionville, Missouri. The bottom right view there is Tony Lawback's live camera shot. And again, Tony's in an area that's getting some strong winds from the rear flank downdraft, at least most likely. This is very close to the center of this area of rotation, mere miles north of town, where a tornado likely is still occurring, or at least may still be occurring. You can see the view in Hammond, Indiana. Chicago Midway, bottom left, they had a gust of 72 miles per hour at the airport. And the cam still works. Hats off to the folks at EarthCam. We love their camera network. But that's been a nasty, nasty storm. Some of you in Chicago making posts about in the chat here on YouTube about how nasty the storm was in Chicago. They felt like maybe they kind of expected the sirens to go off. It may be that in Cook County, emergency management reserves the time to issue the siren sounding just for tornado threats, which in my opinion is not a bad idea. And that may be the case. There was no tornado warning in Chicago proper, but it was a nasty straight line wind event that was well forecast and predictable. And it really barreled through. So I'm on radar here, and you can see these areas of rotation. I'm looking at this through the perspective of the Des Moines, Iowa radar site. And overall, nasty winds in competing directions here with this area very close to Unionville. Storm chaser Aaron Jack is going to join us now live as well. Aaron, which storm are you on? You're up in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm going to take us up that way. To get a view of some storms up here. And Aaron, I know these storms aren't quite severe, but they're strengthening at this point.
Yeah, sub-severe right now, and I have no doubt they're likely going to be severe by this constant rumble of thunder I'm hearing over the top of me. So we're kind of just in an organization phase right now, multiple cells kind of fired up here in the Rochester area, trying to develop into supercells, and you can see this is that storm. I'm on the north side of Rochester, so I'm seeing mostly rain right here, but in just a moment I'm going to drop south of Rochester and then move to the east towards Winona, Minnesota, and track these storms as they move off to the east, because they're definitely going to be moving into an environment that's a little bit more conducive for a tornado. So we'll be tracking these cells off to the east. Of course, we do have the threat for hail and strong winds with these storms that they are able to intensify into severe storms and supercells. But right now we're just getting started. The air mass here is very, very warm and just laden with moisture. So you can just feel the thick air here in place in the Midwest from my location and further south down into Iowa where Tony is at. So definitely a dangerous night still ahead here in the Midwest, and we'll keep tracking these storms as they develop and move off to the east tonight. Back to you, Geoff.
All right, thanks so much there, Aaron Jack in southeast Minnesota. Just a reminder at kind of the scale of this severe weather risk. Here are your watches, tornado watches in effect, or a tornado watch from central Kansas to eastern Iowa. Severe thunderstorm watches from Springfield and Champaign, Illinois. We're getting questions on the chat about Illinois. The only severe warning in central Illinois, people are wondering about central Illinois, west of Champaign right now. But our main event, for sure, is this storm that Tony Lawback has been on, and we want to take this back into the area near Unionville, Missouri. We're up in far north central Missouri. We're going to get rid of the lightning, go back to the high-res radar data, and Des Moines has been giving us our best view for the north to south view of this storm. So, Tony, are we able to go to Tony right now? I don't want to go rogue, but this is a PDS, particularly dangerous situation tornado warning. All right, Tony. So, as you're aware, we got a particularly dangerous situation tornado warning between Unionville and Howland. How do you feel about what
Geoff,
you're observing here?
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you, Geoff. Here we've got a tornado in progress again. This is going to be just to the northeast of Unionville. This one is multi-vortex. It's kind of a weak-looking, disorganized rotation. But this was down briefly, so this would be the second tornado, again, that I've seen on this storm. This is, again, going to be north to just to the northeast of Unionville. So we've got a particularly like you said, a particularly dangerous situation. I'm going to get up on my car for a second here. Yeah, the area of rotation is fairly disorganized. It's on and off, intermittent on the ground. But again, this is now to the northeast of Unionville. So Unionville, for the moment, with this particular storm, you are in the clear. So we are going to go ahead and push east because obviously we're trying to stay ahead of the RFD. So we're going to go ahead and push east. But again, this area of rotation has put an intermittent tornado down. We're just now trying to stay ahead of the rain. But yes, again, confirmed tornado, second tornado. This one much weaker, much briefer. Could be still ongoing to our north here. But again, terrain is not our friend. I do not see it on the ground. So
seems just a hint of it's kind of like hillier terrain there with some trees and so forth. But Tony, we appreciate all you're doing there. You're making it, you're bringing it to life here for us with these visuals. Way better than just looking at radar, that's for sure. So Tony is in the area of Unionville, Missouri, and again, as we continue to track this, just as a reset for those of you who are joining us, Unionville up in far, far northern Missouri, even north of Kirksville. So the area between Kirksville and Ottumwa, near the Iowa border, the Iowa line. And this is an area that's been a hotbed for tornadoes here today. Just a quick visit of some other tornadoes. I don't want to neglect any of them. One of these has been at times confirmed as well. I'm going to go back to the Kansas City radar site. And man, this thing has like these two down into an area near Jamesport. What'd you say, Mel? Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if you said toss to Tony. If Tony gets another visual on the tornado, I don't want to miss that. But overall, you can see these almost look like conch shells, these two cells down here. And there's a hooked shape to these. These are supercellular, very different from the storms that we've been tracking up near Chicago or up into parts of Wisconsin. And as we look at the velocity scan, they look pretty ragged on velocity, but at least the tracer of what's going on here, you can see the red and green. It does align with the reflectivity, the shape of the storms themselves. I want to see what's going on here with the... I want to make sure that I'm on the Kansas City radar site here. That is it. The velocity scan just kind of trashy.
It's down again.
All right, Tony, let's go back to you right now, up into far northern Missouri, northeast of Unionville.
Yeah, Jeff, we got a tornado again. This would be number 3 here, assuming that this is kind of a different circulation. I know you're not going to get a view on camera, unfortunately. It's kind of over my left shoulder behind me to my 7 o'clock. But we have a confirmed large funnel down. I'm trying to find a place to pull off and point that direction. But again, we're not in the best of terrain. And unfortunately, the road I'm going now is splits from the opposite direction. But so, again, this would be northeast of Unionville. Another tornado is on the ground. We are trying to find a vantage point here. We're kind of in a valley with a blocked view. It did come down. It was fully condensed. See if I can get a view down this little valley here. Love terrain. This is where you miss Kansas, right? Cannot tell. The base of the clouds, unfortunately, are covered up by the hills between me and it. So we're going to get to turn straight. But going here, confirm 3. On this cell, again, it's northeast of Unionville. We've got a cyclic tornadic supercell that is continuing to produce tornadoes.
All right, Tony, we appreciate that report there. Far northern Missouri up against the Iowa line. Howland to Mendota to Chariton. These are some of the small towns. As we extrapolate the forward motion of this here, we've been talking about this as about 25, 30 mile per hour movement here. And if we extrapolate forward movement in that fashion, you can see it'd be out moving into the area near Coatesville. I wasn't sure if any of those small towns would pop up in the system to give us an estimated arrival time. But again, 25 to 30 mile per hour forward movement here has been the general theme, now about 30 or so, moving east-northeast across far northern Missouri. I'm going to pull the map out and just if Tony gets anything new, we can obviously go back to him. I'm going to bring in the high-res, the high-resolution rapid refresh. It's a short-range computer model. Some of you are wondering, what's the rest of the evening look like here? And I'm just going to bring this forward to give us, I'm going to scrub through it. This is kind of it is a short-range computer model. So we're in Central Time. And some of you are wondering about your town. Maybe you're in Central Michigan. Maybe you're in Rochester, Minnesota. Storms ramping up into the Eau Claire area and La Crosse, Wisconsin, through Quad Cities, through Cedar Rapids late this evening. in Iowa with gusty storms. The atmosphere has been worked over so significantly in southern Wisconsin. You'll notice that storms, this next round kind of fades as it moves into southern Wisconsin deep into the night, which I think that would probably align with reality. And then late at night, before daybreak, Omaha, you may get walloped by some more storms. And then Waterloo, and these could be some nasty storms when Anna and Bernie are with you on the AccuWeather Network in the morning through central Iowa. They're going to have their hands full in the morning then as well with some nasty early morning storms. So that's just the big picture view on that situation. Here are your latest watches. Tornado watch continuing for many. We have severe watches as well from Springfield North. And our team's assessment of the risk here looks a lot like this. We've got a high risk into central and northern parts of the Mississippi Valley for this evening. That's 3 out of 4 in the AccuWeather 4-tiered scale. Tomorrow, by the way, we have another 3 out of 4 on the scale, a high risk up in Chicago and southern Wisconsin into southwestern parts of Michigan. And tomorrow, beyond the wind threat that barreled through Chicago with gusts of wind, 72 miles per hour measured at the Midway Airport, we have a tornado threat on the map for tomorrow. So that'll be a big concern there. But again, our main concern here, Trenton, Missouri, facing some significant hazards, tornado threat in progress there. And as we zoom in on these storms, pressing pause before we send you to a commercial break here. Again, this area of rotation continuing to move through eastern Davis into Grundy County, and a tornado moving through Putnam County, Missouri. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break here. Just seeing if I'm missing anything, checking out some alerts. Flying debris, lightning down, trees reported in Chicago earlier, DuPage, Will, Cook counties. It's not a surprise given what we were talking about. And then lightning strike in Monroe City, Missouri. That's not a surprise at all. Sometimes we get alerts for lightning strikes when we're getting thousands of them in this setup here. But overall, again, we're tracking a number of severe storms. Some of you have wondered about central Illinois. You're doing okay there for the most part. There is a severe warning for an area just between Empire and Mahomet, north and northwest of Champaign. The severe winds that blitz through Chicago are bringing a true danger to Lake Michigan. Any boaters out there that aren't on a massive lake freighter are going to be facing a significant danger. These storms are also bringing severe winds to Gary, Indiana, and Lowell, and then up into parts of Wisconsin. Taking a look farther north, still tracking a tornado warning east of Wausau, a new one. Let's take a look at this one from the Green Bay perspective. We actually have pretty good eyes on this one from the Green Bay radar site. And as we look at the velocity scan, a new cell. So here you can see, well, first I wanted to show, I think this might be another cell merger. This is what we talked about. It's not quite a cell merger, but it's close to that. The storm's changing character, and there's an area here where the red and the green have been kind of opposed to one another. Green, strong wind moving toward the Green Bay radar site and to the north away from the radar site. Probably mainly a straight line wind threat, but there is a risk for an isolated tornado here between Almond and Neopit near Morgan. So we're looking at northern Shawano County and into western parts of Menominee County in Wisconsin. That's west-northwest of Green Bay. That's the severe threat up that way. We are now seeing our first severe thunderstorm warning in Olmsted County of Minnesota. That's home to Rochester. That's where Aaron Jajak's been located. We got a lot of action up in the north central part of Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. A lot of people who might be out there camping or fishing facing some dangerous severe warnings. The area of greatest concentrated tornado activity by far has been right where Tony Lawback is located, and that is in the area of northeast of Unionville, Missouri right now, north of Kirksville, and now a new warning issued into Appanoose County of Iowa as this cell is crossing the state line here very soon from Missouri into southern parts of Iowa. Now, the cell itself still at the moment between Howland and Esper, a couple of mere miles, maybe 7 miles northeast of Unionville proper. If you're in Unionville, if you're west of Unionville, I'd come out of your shelter. If you're in downtown Unionville, I think you're okay to come out of your shelter. But if you're northeast of there, in northern parts of Putnam County or northeastern Putnam County, be in your shelter. We got a dangerous setup with an ongoing tornado moving through this area. When I say that, it's been touching down and lifting. So again, the risk is present for additional tornado touchdowns with this cell. And again, it's being described as a confirmed tornado warning there. I have been kind of wrestling with the radar a little farther southwest for these other cells down near Trenton. When I say wrestling with the radar, there, we're getting better. For a while, we were just getting garbage velocity data, a couple of these scans, but this one is, actually, this is coming in from Des Moines. It's looking better from Des Moines. The Kansas City radar site is now giving us better data. For a while, we were getting some pretty crappy looking velocity scans, but they're looking a little bit better right now. All right, we're going to rejoin the AccuWeather network in progress here. Thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We have been simulcasting live on TikTok and on YouTube, tracking a number of severe storms. The worst of this is certainly in the Midwest today. We're facing some strong thunderstorms moving into the Delaware Valley and down into the Hampton Roads area. Philadelphia Metro, not quite severe here today, at least for most of these storms. Wilmington down into Smyrna, Delaware. Look out. Strong storm, some lightning moving into the area near the Hampton Roads. Norfolk, Virginia, strong thunderstorm, not quite severe. By far, the action that we are most concerned about has been in the Midwest. A variety of severe threats, tornado warnings for some, and the greatest concentration of these has certainly been along the Missouri-Iowa line. I'm going to get rid of the lightning. There's just so much lightning out there. And the radar view out of Des Moines, Iowa, facing from north to south. It's giving us a look at these storms. And one of these storms that Tony Lawback has been in position for has been a dangerous tornado producer. You can see the red is inbound, lots of inbound movement here, and then there's some outbound wind in a very definite, finite area, I should say. Newer radar scan picking this up a bit more clearly, whether it's just a function of where the radar scan wedge it got picked up, or where that hit the storm, or perhaps we're seeing a cycling. We're a little far from the radar sites here, so we're hitting this higher up in the atmosphere, several thousand feet above the ground. But this is where an area of disturbed weather is. A confirmed tornado has been moving through parts of northern Putnam County, Missouri, and it's soon to creep into Appanoose County of Iowa. The forward vector movement of this storm here is barely north of, I'd say it's basically east-northeast. It's maybe, if this were a compass, it's maybe moving at around 60 degrees east-northeast. If 90 were directly to the east, maybe 65 degrees east-northeast. So Sheraton, Dean, Coal City, Chapel, some of these areas in far northeast Putnam County and southeastern Appanoose County of Iowa take shelter. Mel, if we wanted to go back to Tony, if he has anything to share, he's in a good spot for this, I know. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Tony's repositioning, and he's very close to that tornado. While he is doing that, let's go farther south. Tornado warnings to the northwest of Ottumwa at that latitude have been abandoned. Severe thunderstorm winds are the main concern there, up near Ottumwa and west of Ottumwa, Iowa. But we have a confirmed tornado moving into the area of Trenton, Missouri. This is a bit more populated. The population here for this cell. So we got about 30. Well, okay. So this one near Trenton, a lot of different tornado warnings. 11 minutes ago, it was issued with about 8,000 to 9,000 people under this tornado warning as it is formatted there, the purple one. So the velocity scan showing, again, man, the data, the radar data has not been showing as strong the couplet there from the view from the north, but we're just getting too far from the radar site. So as we take a look at this from the Kansas City perspective, south to north, you can see the shape of these storms. They have that conch shell hook-like shape. And that's a sign that these are indeed supercells. You can see there's a little bit of a hook on the west side of these. We switch over to the velocity scan, and you can see the red outbound, green inbound, west of Gallatin. As I loop this, I want to loop this to give us a little more continuity and kind of tracing the primary zone of rotation. It's not a very tight couplet, I'll say that. But again, there must be visual evidence to support the continuation of this being a confirmed tornado warning. And I am seeing that here. So east-northeast of Jameson, Davis County, several spotters confirming a tornado here in this area here. There is the report. So near Gilman City, east-northeast of Jameson. Several spotters calling in to report tornado on the ground, confirmed by radar and reports. Again, the radar presentation is moderate, but the ground truth is so important. This is why the storm chasers are so important, because they really give us confirmation of what's going on beyond this somewhat scrappy-looking couplet here on radar. You know, that may not necessarily scream obvious tornado, but if you have storm chasers saying they're seeing it, then they're seeing it. And again, as I trace the area of rotation, is very close to Trenton, Missouri. And then a more obvious couplet down to the area near Gallatin, where there have not necessarily been storm reports confirming a tornado with that one recently. But there have been up here, and we've seen them live from Tony Lawback, as he is battling the elements there near the Iowa-Missouri line. The Des Moines radar site's going to give us the best view of this one. And this is a very obvious, strong, tight couplet here. Red outbound, green inbound. By the numbers, if we do some math here, we can grab one of the pixels, 12 mile per hour wind in one direction, 74 in the other. So about, it's an 85, 86 mile per hour couplet from side to side, the contrast there. And we're seeing this from miles away, many miles, dozens of miles from the radar site. In fact, numerically here, as I measure this, got to turn the tool off before I move the map. There's reason to do this. We can estimate how high up the radar is hitting the storm when we measure the distance to the radar site. So at 92 or 93 miles, this is like the distance where I begin to think this might not even be the best radar site anymore for it. But there is a little bit of a radar hole out this way. And again, we're kind of just between radar sites. So that's going to give us our best bet. And that's been producing some of the most vivid data. So the rotation that we're seeing aloft is like 8 or 9 miles up there, but it's still strong rotation. And that aloft translates down to the ground and produces things like tornadoes that we can see. There's a view from yesterday, or I think yesterday, from Winnipeg, Minnesota. Either yesterday or today, but the Canadian prairie provinces have been hit hard by tornadoes as well. In fact, storm chaser Aaron Jajak, who we've been talking to, he's in southeast Minnesota now. Yesterday, he was north of the border, tracking some of that Canadian severe weather outbreak from yesterday. And we're continuing to track areas like Trenton, Missouri, and also areas northeast of Unionville, Missouri. So I'm zooming in, Putnam County, Missouri, and up into southeastern parts of Iowa, in Appanoose County, Iowa. Ongoing tornado threats in those areas. Look at Naperville, Illinois earlier. That was the storm that blitzed through Chicago. Some of you will remember this one for a while. Nasty winds, lots of power outages out there. As we send you to break, here's a look at the current number of power outages. All right, the AccuWeather Network just went to break. We have 380 plus 12, 392,500 addresses without power, and that is obviously over 500,000 people. That's the number of electric meters not getting service, so we're dealing with some big numbers there. And overall, again, some big threats regarding severe wind. By volume, most of these outages came from eastern Wisconsin, eastern Illinois, with that tremendous wind that rolled through the area. I'm going to check out a few of your comments here on YouTube. All right. People talking about the warmth. It's been hot out there. Let's take a look at these temperatures. Some of you saying it felt like 100. Well, we can take a look at the current temps in the north central U.S. here. And this is fuel for the storms. No doubt about it. Maybe the north central current temps here showing that, again, it's been hot, but we're going to be dealing with a rapid temperature drop here behind the ongoing front. In fact, first, here are the temperature change map, which is kind of interesting to see sometimes. The blue, much cooler than it was yesterday at this hour. Chicago, you dropped 14 degrees. Rapid City, 22 degrees lower than it was exactly at this hour yesterday. All right, so that's a good question. Somebody asking, what does wind toward and away mean? I'm going to talk about that. That's a good question there. ARS 517. 93 degrees right now in Omaha. When the AccuWeather Network rejoins us, it's going to be a 2-minute break, or a 2-minute block. This is the quickest that we have here on the AccuWeather Network. I will talk about what we mean when we're talking about toward and away, and why that is helpful to us here with radar interpretation. All right, I'm just checking out a few more of your comments. It's going to be a stormy day tomorrow there in the Midwest as well. We don't know how large the tornado is right now. All right, thanks for rejoining us here on the AccuWeather Network. I want to dig back into these tornadoes, and we have three areas of rotation, but 2 tornadoes that are likely still in progress right now, or at least occasionally skipping across the landscape. Somebody asked, what does wind toward and away mean? I say that a lot, and I realize that sometimes we almost imply things without fully explaining them. When I say that, I'm looking at the storm, and radar can be looked at in many different ways, more than ever before, different forms of radar data. This is radar reflectivity. This is showing us where it's raining or hailing and how hard it's coming down. As you know, light green's lighter, deep green, moderate to heavy rain. The heaviest rain is yellow, orange, and really, really coming down heavily in red with some hail embedded within that. When I switch the radar to this funny looking view of velocity, I can bring up SR velocity, storm relative velocity. So it's a little complicated, but it's not terrible. So the storm's moving at about 30 miles per hour. This is showing us the wind speed of the storm within the storm. So the radar pulses are bouncing off of raindrops and hail and whatever else is up there. And it's the radar can tell us if the radar pulses are hitting things that are moving toward the radar site quickly or away from the radar site quickly. And in this area near Chariton in Missouri, east of there, the wind is moving toward the radar site, and just west of there is moving away from the radar site. So this velocity data can show us that there's rotation there. That's why that is very meaningful to us. There's rotation. If wind is moving toward the radar site and a few miles away it's moving away from the radar site, you got rotation within the storm, and that's the sign that the storm is rotating, and sometimes that translates down to the ground and produces a tornado. That's why we're concerned here about this area of Putnam County, Missouri, and Appanoose County, Iowa. All right, so in 2 minutes, that was an attempt to answer your question there. What does that mean when we're saying toward and away from the radar site? And you might say, well, why can't the radar tell us if the storm is moving? It doesn't really give us a comprehensive view of the wind. All it tells us is if you subtract out the storm motion, or even if you don't, if we just do it with base velocity, this is just showing us the wind straight up. It can't, so the radar site I'm using is way up in Des Moines, Iowa. And this is just a little Weather Radar 101. As I loop this, you can see if you look really, really close, there's a little hole in the radar up near Des Moines. That's the radar site itself. So this can't really measure wind moving this way or that way. But what it can do is it can measure wind moving in radials, like spokes of a bike, toward or away from the radar site in any direction from the radar site. So if you're on I-80, it can measure pretty accurately the wind going east or west. It can't measure north or south because all it can say is the storm moving toward or away from the radar site, and the radar is up here near Des Moines. So what it's giving us is kind of this little two-dimensional cross-section scan of this storm on the Iowa-Missouri line, by the way. Now, look out in Coal City, tornado moving your direction. And it can tell us, the radar is saying there's strong wind moving in this direction. In fact, not just arbitrarily strong and then away, but it can actually measure it for us. So let's go back to storm relative. And this is telling us that if you subtract out the movement of the storm, that's moving basically northeast, so it's not that different from the actual full-scale wind speed of this storm. 72 mile per hour toward the radar site, and just to the west near Chariton, 20 mile per hour away. You can see minus, and then the implication of a plus. There's no minus there. So that's a 92 mile per hour contrast in the conflicted wind speed within this storm. And if that's located in this tight couplet area, that means even though we can't explicitly see the wind moving this way or that way, if it's doing this and it's doing that, it's just obvious that, again, the way the atmosphere works, we're dealing with tight rotation and the very high likelihood of a tornado. And there you got these purple lines saying the Weather Service would agree with that. We have a tornado warning, confirmed tornado warning in Putnam County and southeastern Appanoose County of Iowa. So that's an extension of the attempted answer. Why? All right, anytime. Hey, we like the interactivity here, going back and forth. Will we see severe thunderstorms in Green Bay, Wisconsin on Thursday? Well, we can answer that question here. I think I also want to touch on today, too, because you're facing some rain. And actually, to be honest with you, I love the trend for Green Bay for right now, for tonight, because you're seeing rain, and it's stratiform rain, it's steady rain, and frankly, the severe risk here, at least for the next few hours, it's already moved away from you. And you're probably even, the fact that you're asking about this, you're probably pretty weather savvy because you didn't ask about tonight. So Green Bay, you're basically in the clear for the remainder of the early evening. We might see a strong storm later. But for tomorrow, this is how our team here at AccuWeather, 125 to 130 meteorologists employed by AccuWeather here. This is our forecast for Thursday. We have Green Bay kind of on the northern edge, and you are in the risk area. And we have a 2 out of 4. Some risk, moderate risk, high risk, and extreme risk. We haven't used an extreme yet this year, I don't think. I don't think we have. And Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong. But maybe we did once. But Green Bay, you will likely see some thunderstorms. They'll probably be strong, but they may not be as intense as what goes on to your south near Milwaukee. All right, the AccuWeather Network rejoins us. A brand new severe thunderstorm watch has been issued until 11 p.m. for the western half of the lower peninsula of Michigan, northern Indiana, north of Indy, and then areas like Williams County, Defiance County, Paulding, Van Wert County, in northwestern parts of Ohio, and in between. So that's a new watch that was just issued. But as we look at the risk, I was talking to somebody here in Green Bay wondering about the risk for tomorrow. Green Bay, you look good for the rest of the evening. We have big concerns, so let's go to storm chaser and meteorologist Tony Lawback in his 30th season of storm chasing. And Tony, we got big problems right now with this confirmed tornado. What are you seeing? Can you confirm the tornado crossing the line into southern Iowa? Tony's joining us from...
So we're right next to Lancaster.
Go ahead, Tony.
You got me, Jeff? Oh,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
All right. Yeah, so we're northbound on 63. We are just about to approach Lancaster, Missouri. So we're on US 63 heading north. Going to try to cut this off before it crosses the highway up here. Again, we're kind of in limited road options, limited terrain. So we don't have a view currently of where this tornado would be. My concern, just based on what I'm seeing with the structure of the storm, is that it might be heavily rain wrapped. We might have to get in pretty close to see if we can get this thing again. Radar signature would certainly indicate that we definitely have a problem in there. We just do not have a view of it right now. So we're the plan right now we're going to be looking at here. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of road options. So we're going to go north on 63. And if you cross the Iowa line on 63, you're going to catch up to Highway 2 over toward the Bloomfield area. That's going to put us north of the potential tornado. And then we will take Iowa Highway 2 kind of southeast. Unfortunately, like I said, we're at the mercy of the road networks here. And with the heavy rain these storms are producing, we don't want to get stuck on anything mud that doesn't allow for good traction. So obviously, we don't want to get stuck and be in any issues there. So we're going to catch this thing, try to intercept it again as it crosses Highway 63. This will be north of Lancaster, south of Bloomfield, Iowa. So this will occur on the Iowa side of the line on 63. So south of Bloomfield. If you're in Pulaski, Milton, you would be, I would say, of some concern, maybe even Bloomfield. I certainly would not sleep on it if you're in Bloomfield. Again, I know you're not under tornado warnings yet, but if you were with us earlier for Unionville, we were getting you guys kind of ready for that when the warning went out for you. So those towns right now, the more immediate threat ones, Bloomfield, Pulaski, Milton, would be the 3 towns in Iowa on State Highway 2 that this storm is taking aim for. So we will hopefully be able to get to something here, Jeff. I would say in the next 5 to 10 minutes, we should have a view again, and we'll let you know what we see underneath this thing.
All right. Thanks so much there, Tony. Good stuff. We always appreciate your storm chasing. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's on it today, right in place here for arguably the biggest tornado producer so far for the event. Here we are in northeastern Putnam County, moving into northwestern Schuyler County of Missouri, and then southeastern Appanoose County of Iowa. Just keeping my head on straight here. I don't want to miss any radar opportunities here. When I say that, I'm talking about bringing up closer radar sites, but I think that we're still kind of lost between Kansas City and Des Moines, and off to the east we're going to have the Quad Cities. Davenport increasingly may become a closer view for us if we measure the distance Still 132 miles, which is really not great. So we have what we have here, and Des Moines given us the best bet for this particular cell. But again, a tornado warning still continuing through the area near Trenton, Missouri. This is an area that has had a pretty sustained area of rotation. And even before we go over to the velocity scan, you can see, even from the Des Moines radar site, we'll go to Kansas City in a minute, you can see that little hook. That is the sign to me that these are areas here. It's a subtle little curvature there, subtle curvature. That's just a hint of the anatomy of the storm, what's going on aloft. And as we switch over to the Kansas City radar sites, here we're getting a little closer view of things, not by a lot, but by a little bit. And again, a pretty dramatic hook there. And the hook is a little more definitive there, definite near Jamesport. So a pair of cells here, they're kind of brother and sister moving east at this point. And as we take a look at the velocity scan from the Kansas City radar site here, this is a bit of better radar data than we've seen out of Kansas City lately for this. We're looking at 85 to 97 miles away. So we are looking at this 7 or maybe 8,000 feet up into the atmosphere. I'm not doing the math. I'm just estimating based on memory and experience. But overall, areas around Trenton, we're dealing with an area of rotation there. And then this other cell with, again, a pretty strong area of rotation west of Jamesport. So because there are two cells kind of running in tandem with one another, almost like a convoy of tornado threats, they're both spinning. They're both rotating. And I think everybody here from this area near Jamesport in Missouri, in Davis County of Missouri, into Grundy County, Missouri. Some of you took shelter for the first storm. Unfortunately, you need to stay in your shelter there, even west of Trenton, because you have another one coming your way. And there's a new tornado warning just issued into Sullivan County, Missouri, in advance of this somewhat high confidence zone of sustained rotation. It's also barely clipping areas north of Brookfield up into extreme northwestern Lynn County of Missouri as well. But areas from Jamesport to Trenton to Milan, Missouri, take shelter. We are also dealing with a new issuance of a confirmed tornado warning for Davis County of Iowa. We're going to go back to the Des Moines radar site for this one, and this is the cell that Tony has been on. He is intentionally staying barely south of the rotation. He's near Lancaster in northern Missouri. And he wants to stay south of it because if he gets up into the core of the storm, you lose visibility. If you get north of there, you're dealing with trouble involving hail and wind and rain that you won't even be able to see through. So Brian Emfinger is chasing one of the western cells that we were on there. And he continues to track one of those cells. Brian, I think, is he near Trenton, Missouri? Mel, do you know his location? Okay, thank you. So he's on this, presumably this western cell near Jamesport, and that's a pretty good visual. He's right where you want to be to chase this and continue to move straight so he can see the base of the cloud. And can we bring that view up full? Knobs, I'm just curious to see if there's any... Yeah, it's fine. I know you're doing all kinds of things here. So this Brian Emfinger shot, bottom right. Look at the water, by the way, in St. Joseph, Whitecaps there. So here we're looking at the base of this storm, and I was just curious if we were seeing any appendages out of the bottom, like a funnel cloud. And you could see a hint of a wall cloud there to the right. But this storm is still rotating. It's rotating, and there have been reports of tornadoes. The most recent report on this one was from 5 miles east-northeast of Jameson in Davis County. But that was at 21:30 UTC. It's 9 minus 5. It takes us back to 4:30 Central Time. So that was a while ago. I think that was the eastern cell. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. With any new reports. I don't see any new official reports filed. Was that really that early? It says 21:30 UTC. Okay. Well, yeah, that's true. That 4:30 Central Time. That's only 38 minutes ago. That's very believable. We're here in Pennsylvania, so I'm thinking in Eastern Time and trying to interpolate to or translate to Central Time. So that's very believable. And that tornado warning was produced by the eastern one that's now east of Trenton. Just watching on a different source how it was plotted and when it was plotted. In fact, you can see that now too. There it was. And these get plotted a little bit north of their actual location because it's like a three-dimensional plot. but that's a little bit truer to the location. So overall, 2 likely tornado producers here in north central Missouri, Davis County, Grundy County, and into the area of eventually Sullivan County, Missouri as well. And tracing the areas of rotation, here's number 1, here's number 2. No rest for the weary there in that part of Missouri. And on that note, we have seen now the northern cell that Tony has been tracking. He's bottom middle there. That's a nasty cell there. It looks like the core of rotation, the most significant, likeliest risk of a tornado is crossing or has crossed the state line from Missouri into Iowa. And it's right at the triple point here between Appanoose, Schuyler, and Davis County. Appanoose in Davis County, Iowa, Schuyler County in northern Missouri. It has just exited Putnam County, and right now in Unionville, you can come out of your shelter as things have improved there for the past 20, 30 minutes. Tony, can we go to Tony? He's got some pretty impressive wind and rain there in view. Or at least rain. Tony, I see you there.
Here. Let's do it.
You're there. Let's do it. Have you crossed the state line yet?
Yeah, I'm about 2-3 miles north. We're just kind of crawling up here to kind of get lined up with this right now. Kind of what we do. We assume the radar is a couple minutes behind. That's always kind of the general consensus, because obviously it takes some time to get the data downloaded. So what we're seeing on radar is not what's happening immediately. So you extrapolate a couple of minutes as to where we think the circulation is going to go. So we're trying to line up south of where we think it's going to cross the highway in front of us here. And again, when you're mixed in terrain, we're a little further back than I would be, say, in Kansas. And as you can kind of tell here, we're not in a lot of wind. I'll just kind of show you the tree here. You can see the tree's very still at the moment. So we're not in a ton of wind right now where we're at. So we're probably going to start to see the winds picking up. Likely, if you're looking at my camera right now, they're going to start to get stronger from right to left, so east to west. As this storm approaches, we're going to get into the inflow part of this hook echo. The tornado, again, in a perfect world, assuming it maintains the course it's been maintaining, and that's what we're kind of basing this decision-making in terms of where we're positioning right now, because our visual isn't great. We're assuming that it's keeping a straight line. We're giving it a little leeway in case it does want to turn right a little bit. The last thing we want to do is put ourselves north of where the tornado is off to our west. So if you drew a straight line from where the tornado is west of us, straight across, we don't want to get on the north side of that line and put ourselves in the path of this. This storm likely, at least based on what I'm seeing, could be HP. We could be talking high precipitation, meaning the tornado may not be readily visible from a distance, like we saw earlier as this tornado was producing, or the storm was producing the tornado near Unionville. You're not the only one, Geoff, who needs to put his head on straight sometimes. But we're in a safe spot. We're going to hold here for a couple of minutes. We'll get in your ear if we start to get a view of anything. Again, right now, like I said, we're kind of in bad terrain. I keep griping about that, but that's what we got to work with what we work with.
That's right. And Tony, I pulled up the velocity, well, actually the shear track. This thing's been laying down a path of rotation for quite a while, and this is probably not even the best measure of it because I'm looking at Des Moines radar data. So at least from that system scan, for about 50 miles or so, but we're hitting this awfully high up, and I think I measured, maybe you can put your head together with me here, but from the center of the storm to the radar site, 93 miles. What's that going to be? About eight miles up, 7 or 8 miles into the atmosphere, something close to that.
Yeah, and I just measured here. If you want to plot me on your map here, I am exactly 2.5 miles north of the border on US 36. So there's no road intersection. We're just north of 302nd Road, which would be the 2 mile mark, I would bet. So that is where we are set up right now. So
you're in a good spot.
So you can kind of plot where we are. I hope so. If the camera turns upside down, I screwed up. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
All right.
Look, I know it's a serious nature, folks, but we gotta keep it light too. We don't want everybody to think the world's ending.
That's true. Yeah, and I see, we sometimes see comments like that on YouTube, and I realize, some people have some serious storm phobias. We talk about this a lot when we do these, and you need to be prepared. But if you have a plan in place and you take shelter, it takes some of the fear factor away because you're doing what you can. And Tony, you've seen a lot of tornado damage, and I've been to storm surveys when I worked in local TV for 11 years in the Joplin area and elsewhere in Kentucky. I'd go out on these storm surveys to shoot news stories sometimes. And, these homes, when they're damaged, most of the time, if you go to the small interior room in the basement or the lowest floor of your home, you're going to be fine. They tend to get destroyed from the outside in, from the top down. And most homes aren't going to face that. It's just a small, tiny minority that will face that tonight. But we just need everybody to be prepared, to be ready for it.
Yeah, and if you look at what happened in Unionville, obviously you saw that it was a large tornado, but again, it tracked north of town. Again, statistically, you just said it. Statistically, tornadoes take up a very small space. So It is unlikely in most cases that you are going to find yourself in one. Now, obviously, if that storm was a little further south, then, we're talking Unionville could be, so there's, if candies and nuts were ifs and buts, we talk about that all the time. You are not guaranteed to be hit by the tornado that we're watching, but you want to make sure you're in a spot to be safe in the event that it does, because it only takes one time.
Absolutely true. Yeah, it's not worth the risk. All right, thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are chatting to Tony, or with Tony. Tony, by the way, meteorologist Kayla Schuster says welcome to Iowa. She is doing some of the graphical work behind the scenes right now, working remote from Iowa. Mel, our viewers are back with us. Is the Bloomfield, Iowa cam, the bottom left there, is that a storm-related thing or is that just construction? I don't know if you happen to know. Tony just bailed out, but he's still got his headset on. But yeah, Mel, what's this? Do you know if that could we? I don't know what's going on in Bloomfield. If it's just construction, it's just construction. But I didn't want to miss anything if there was something storm-related causing the traffic tie-up there. We are tracking numerous storms. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. A little less formal today because we're doing our YouTube live simulcast and TikTok live simulcast, where we are staying up commercial-free. I'm checking out some of your comments and questions on YouTube. But again, somebody wondering, they're debating whether to drive in Chicago. They're scared of hail. Well, the good news in Chicago is the severe threat for now is over. In fact, the next several hours are going to be fine in Chicago. It's wet out there. You may encounter problems like down power lines. We don't want to get anywhere close to that. But by now, unless you're in a rural area, I think that by now most downed lines, at least in the core of the Chicago metro, should have been discovered by now. And hopefully first responders and utility crews are there with some flashing lights. But outside of that, the additional risk of severe wind or hail or a tornado in northeastern Illinois is over for this part of the storm. Late tonight, though, things may change. We got more convection off to the west with this action into parts of Iowa. So we're tracking a few different cells that are bringing a tornado risk. Let's get into it here. The cell that Tony has been talking about, and he is on the prowl. That's his view there, bottom middle, in the area near this Bloomfield and north of Lancaster cell. We are now into Iowa. Tony has moved 2 miles north into Iowa in Davis County, and there's Appanoose County as well. In Iowa. This storm has been producing pretty sustained rotation for about 50 or 60 miles now. And as we switch over to the velocity data, we're looking at this from the north to the south from the Des Moines radar site. And here you can see very clearly our problem. This is an area of strong rotation. It's moving from Dean to Mark, from Coal City towards Savannah, likely just north of Savannah, approaching Bloomfield. It has now moved into southwestern Davis County of Iowa. And stay in your shelter there in the southeastern corner of Appanoose County. But the severe risk of a tornado is moving through southwestern Davis County of Iowa. And Tony's moving again. So he is basically trying to stay, his goal and is to stay south of this dashed line, because that's where the center of the storm is going to track. If you stay south of it, you'll get a visual, at least for the most part, of the tornado. If you were north of it, you'd have to look through a lot of hail and heavy rain and all that. But that's one big cell. Heading farther south, we could take a look at the area of Jamesport and Trenton. I'm going to hop over to the Kansas City radar site. A pair of twin supercell thunderstorms, and I'm taking a few liberties here with the overall shape and format, but I'm trying to hint at the hook. And those two hooks are areas of strong rotation And that's where we're finding some of that rotation. So areas of risk north of Jamesport, between Jamesport and Trenton, one area of rotation, another one into the area between Laredo and Galt. So areas like far eastern Davis County, Missouri, Grundy County, Missouri, and Sullivan County, Missouri take shelter. The northwestern sliver of Lynn County takes shelter as well. But let's get back to Tony Lawback, because Tony is on the move here, and we got some dark skies there, Tony, and I know you're up against very close to this rotating thunderstorm along the Iowa line.
Yeah, Jeff, I crawled a little bit further south. The problem is, again, we're looking at a very HP type storm, high precipitation, which severely limits the view. So I've pushed about another mile to the south just to give myself a little bit of extra space, because I don't want to take the chance of this tornado, if it's in there, kind of flipping around or in essence hitting me. I'm getting turned back to the north here, so I'll show you kind of what we're looking at. Again, if I'm judging this correctly, and this is the other problem too, because the radar beam is up so high in the storm, that doesn't necessarily line up with where the rotation at the ground might be. So I'm trying to give myself a lot more room as this storm is crossing. So this is the view looking north right now on 36. Again, I've put myself, I would say, about a mile from the border. So I've given myself 2 miles. We're going to get overtaken by the south side of the hook. If there's a tornado, it's in that blue. It's buried in the rain. I will not see it. My hope is that it will try to emerge coming up here. There's that area. If you're looking right down the road, you see the flashing lights of the car ahead of me here. That is the leading edge of the rain, the leading edge of the hook that likely is going to pass in front of me here. So I have voluntarily given up the position in concern because I cannot see what is up there. So I have moved south to get a safe view. Right now, it appears the hook is crossing 36 to my north. So I'm going to start to crawl up here, get a sense of what's going on. But again, I do not have a visual because the rain that is wrapped around this thing has now blocked it from view. So I have given up what could be a position, what they call looking into the notch, but that would put me right in the path of the tornado, which I am not going to do. So we're going to assume, based on radar and what I'm seeing structurally, that there is still a tornado on the ground with this. I cannot visually get a view of it, but I crossed the hill, crest the hill, and hopefully something will make it apparent.
All right. Well, that's very wise, Tony. Yeah, you've been doing this a long time, and we want you to continue to do this for a long time, which involves looking out for your safety. I'm going to quickly take a look at another product here. We're going to bring in the latest version of the watch graphic. Meteorologist Kayla Schuster just updated this, and you can see now northern Indiana. By the way, there are questions about Chicago. Chicago's no longer under a watch. The severe risk has dropped. Tony, we're going to go back to you. Let's go.
Yeah, all right. So what you're looking at here, this is RFD. We talked about this earlier. This is the strong winds that wrap around it. As I was pulling up here, parts of the trees actually snapped off and blew across the road. This is probably 60, 70 mile an hour winds that we're seeing. So again, if there's a tornado on the ground, it is to the north. We are in what's called the RFD, the rear flank downdraft. This can be damaging wind sometimes as this goes through. We're starting to see it lighten up. So the circulation, the likely tornado has probably just crossed 36 right now. What I'm sitting in here again is on the south edge. When I was with TwistX, I was a research mission. My job was to drive a mesonet, a mobile weather station, Jeff, into this RFD region of storms to measure the winds surrounding a tornado. So this is kind of at home for me right now. And again, the winds have calmed down. You've seen this on live. You watched as we came to live here, how blasting the winds were, how calm it is now. The hook is past. So for us, it would be safe to proceed north. The tornado now likely east of Highway 36 as it continues to head up that direction.
And Tony, as an experienced storm chaser, I've sometimes wondered, you're the experienced storm chaser, I'm not. How can you tell that you are in the rear flank downdraft as opposed to perhaps broad circulation of an actual tornado? Is there an obvious telltale sign for you in these high precipitation events?
Typically, in a situation like this, you're not going to drive into a tornado from the south without hitting the RFD. Where I was positioned, it was calm. As I started to come up, I got into the outer edge of that RFD. Sometimes it's really close proximity to the tornado. Sometimes it's a little further out. It just depends on how tight the overall mesocyclone, the big circulation in the cloud, typically is. So usually you kind of can guess if you've gone from like calm conditions, you see the curtain of rain start to wrap on the road. That's usually a pretty good indication you're in the RFD as opposed to the tornado. If I had, gone up another mile or so, and I'll be very interested to see actually, Geoff, here, if we come across a damage path up here. So I'm going to give it just another minute or two to clear, and then I'm going to crawl up the road and see if there's any evidence that a tornado came through here.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Tony Lawback, just barely north of the Missouri-Iowa line. Thanks for rejoining us here on the AccuWeather Network. Tony kind of pressed pause. The rear flank downdraft he was explaining moved through the area, and you can still see some evidence of the rear flank downdraft. He saw a part of a tree blow across the road, and he's getting up into this here, so we're seeing this for the first time as he is. This is obviously live. And the wind's picking up, by the way, bottom middle cam, Grand Haven, Michigan, and St. Joseph. These storms are barreling across Lake Michigan. And look at the wind and the waves picking up there in St. Joseph right now. Chaotic white caps there along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. And that sky's going to get awfully dark there as well. A quick look at the ongoing outages. Well, actually, let's stay up with Tony's cam if you want. I don't want to pull from that. But you can see that we have hundreds of thousands without power right now. And a quick look. Some have been wondering, in fact, we got a question on YouTube, is Chicago going to see another storm? Well, Chicago's in the clear. You're out of the watches for now. Later tonight, the action in Iowa moving back into Illinois. There's potential for you to see some more thunderstorms later this evening. The high-res, short-term future radar product is hinting at something that may not be as severe in Chicago, but farther south where the atmosphere has not been worked over, greater risk down closer to I-70. So small chance of severe continuing into Chicago, better risk of severe down near Effingham, Indianapolis, and beyond. The AccuWeather Network is going to be going to a brief commercial break here. But before you go, here's a quick look at our overall storm risk for through tonight. And we'll see if there's an update to this product coming up after the break. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a break here. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, so there is a slight update. What's it going to do? So this most recent update, we trimmed a little bit of the Minnesota action, but that was 2 hours ago. So I think there probably will be another update coming from our forecast team in just a little bit. And all right, the Iowa DOT cam that we were speculating about earlier, that was not storm related. Thank you there, Kayla, for the good information there. We are just keeping an eye out for things. We're in a commercial break on the AccuWeather Network, and I'm trying to stay on top of this on YouTube, the YouTube chat. Where is the closest confirmed tornado near Indiana? Well, the closest confirmed tornado near Indiana is probably the cell in far southern Iowa, hundreds and hundreds of miles away to your west. But the Indiana risk is going to predominantly be straight line winds. So again, a lot of tornado phobias. I understand that. The biggest issue that most of you will face will be severe thunderstorm winds. I can give you some numbers here on the ongoing tornado warning populations and so forth. Just scrolling north. So we got 1.4 million under a tornado watch. And the overall, some of these warnings, again, they're a bit lower population. Not terribly low, though. Trenton, Missouri, big town there, 7,900 people under that tornado warning, 5,300 under the warning that Tony is on. And really, if we dial it down, those are the two that we're most concerned about. There's also a 4,000 plus population tornado warning up in north central Missouri as well. Before I commit to that, are there any other warnings anymore? The Wisconsin stuff has been transient. I haven't been focusing on that as much, but we do have some severe storms on the map. Duluth, you got a severe thunderstorm warning right now, and especially south of town, you're going to be facing a bit of a wind and hail threat, but it's lifting. And on the north shore, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find much severe on the shoreline because of the wind and that cooler lake water. But overall, as we take you down into these tornado threats, I think this is what we're going to start our 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central hit with here on the AccuWeather Network. And Tony's going to be continuing to provide some updates there on what he's tracking. You can see his view, low visibility. We got a lot of heavy rain there. And Brian Emfinger has been tracking these two cells in Missouri near Trenton now, also producing the sun rotation. So we'll look at them in greater detail. I want to see if you have any more questions. Let's take a look at Michigan here. Those are good stats there from in the chat. 128 severe thunderstorm warnings and 22 tornado warnings today, according to Jesse Farrell. But man, the views in Michigan could become more exciting here fairly soon, depending on where we are, as these storms are running across Lake Michigan and about to blitz into the lakeshore counties. The entire lakeshore of western Michigan under severe thunderstorm warnings consistently from Sleeping Bear Dunes and the Empire area all the way down 250 some miles down into northwestern Indiana. So again, large area facing a severe wind threat. We're also tracking some strong thunderstorms in the northeast. Some of you may be wondering what's the story there. You haven't been talking about that, mainly because the storms haven't really been severe in most cases here. We've had a couple of wind reports. York County, PA, large trees across roads. But a couple of reports of wind down into parts of Virginia as well. But we're going to dig into these tornado threats here that Tony and Brian are facing very soon. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue to track ongoing severe storms. Storms blitzing across Lake Michigan, running into the lakeshore counties in western lower Michigan, really from Empire and the area near Traverse City almost, at least Sleeping Bear Dunes, all the way down to northwest Indiana. Continuously 250 some miles of continuous severe thunderstorm warnings. We have a significant risk of tornadoes here in southern parts of Iowa and far northern Missouri. And then you get up into areas around north central Missouri and also southern Missouri. Rochester, a severe thunderstorm warning. Duluth under a severe warning. East of Bemidji into Lake Country here, we have numerous severe thunderstorms on the prowl. And again, there's the Rochester action east of town. But our main concern, looks like Brian Emfinger is moving through a town. I don't know if it's Trenton or something else. Is that Trenton? Grundy County. It probably is Trenton. It looks like a pretty decent sized town there. Let's go farther north here while Aaron Jack is on the line, facing a severe threat in southeast Missouri, Minnesota. Then we'll go back to Missouri. So Stockton, Minnesota is where Aaron Jack is right now. And Jack's back from Canada's storms yesterday. Some nasty, severe storms you were tracking there. Aaron, what are you seeing right now in Stockton, Minnesota?
Yeah, I've been tracking this storm for the past hour or so, starting way back by Rochester, on that way back west by Rochester. It's been tracking just to the north of I-90 here, and we are just about to approach the Mississippi River. It's just to my east here in Winona. So you can see it's quite hilly here and a lot of trees. So a little bit hard to see, but you can see overhead. Very stormy looking sky here as this storm is coming over the top right now. Right now it is just severe warning. Doesn't look like a significant tornado threat at the moment. I'm actually getting some outflow out of it. But looking at some of the high-res models, when it crosses the river, it looks like this thing could strengthen a little bit. And maybe that tornado threat will strengthen or increase as we get across the river here in just a little bit. So I'll be tracking the storm here to the east into Wisconsin here very shortly. But you can see it's coming through Stockton right now. We're about to get some rain. Lots of like swirls and looks like the underside, looks like the top of the ocean overhead right now. So very turbulent sky overhead as the severe storm moves through Stockton, Minnesota. Back to you, Geoff.
All right, good stuff, Aaron. And with that aquatic theme, we can take a quick look at Grand Haven. Look at that bottom middle. I'm going to find Grand Haven here. There it is to the north. And man, this is rolling in quickly. Wind, rain, reaching the coastline. Visibility tanking right now. So that bottom middle view is the Earth Cam shot from Grand Haven, Michigan. And Tony Lawback, is Tony's audio up? Can we just also go back to Tony? I'm curious. I saw Tony was in a small town there. I was wondering if he's encountered any damage or has it been copacetic to this point? Tony, what are you seeing?
Well, Geoff, I turned around and ran away. If you pull up the radar, Geoff, there, the velocity scan, notice there was kind of another couplet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of took heed and just said, you know what, we can wait. So I booked it back south and back up south on the county line. I'm going to let the storm completely blow through, I think. And we'll take a poke up there. I got up pretty good. Saw just kind of minor tree debris, nothing that would indicate to me. It might have been a little further up. It was hard to tell. Like I said, by the time I got into the area where I thought that it was crossing, I started noticing that things were getting a little fierce again. So I flipped around and turn around and run away. You run away today and chase again tomorrow. That's always the life. So I will state, though, we are considering, I keep saying we, you're along for the ride, so we are in on this. We are considering going down south to get in front of those storms in the Kirksville area just because the road network allows for a little bit better. Trying to stay with the storm that's now moved beyond us is a little risky, especially when we don't have road options to keep with it. So I'm going to assess in Lancaster, just kind of get a quick breather, kind of reset a little bit, and then decide whether or not to head down to Kirksville to get in front of those storms, those two tornadic storms that are coming that direction.
All right, sounds like a good plan, Tony. And I just brought the radar up as you were telling us. Clearly two secondary zone of rotation, and they seem almost equally footed at the moment here, at least as presented by the Des Moines radar site. I'm going to do that again. The one that I labeled as number 1 has certainly been the dominant one, still maybe a smidge stronger than the southern one, but this is, I can see why you backed a little farther south. I don't blame you. Given rotation that developed basically right over your head or right even in the rear view mirror. So there's the number 1 up near Steuben, north of Stiles. That's the primary storm that's been on the ground for a long time, or at least been bringing occasional tornado touchdowns, and that's the parent circulation. But this newcomer to the south is what has led Tony to drop a little farther south, Stiles to areas near and east of Lunsford. They both fit pretty nicely within the tornado warning. So they're both north of the state line, so Davis County, Iowa. Take shelter if you're in these areas all the way down to the Missouri line with that secondary zone of rotation that has ramped up. And again, as a storm chaser, Tony has to keep his head on a swivel, and he's considering heading south to Kirksville, potentially, depending on how things go. As we've had 2 supercells that have been sustaining themselves for quite some time. One supercell, and then another one. I'm kind of making the hook shape obvious with my circling here. But these 2 storms have been bringing some rotation to the table for some time. We are looking at radar data out of Kansas City, Missouri right now. And as we switch over to the velocity scan again, just kind of reminding myself, just making sure I'm showing you what I think I'm showing you. I'm curious to look at these from the perspective of Des Moines as well. But the red is outbound, the green is inbound. I don't know how useful it was when I zoomed it that wide. But overall, the risk for a tornado is present here in these areas. I'm going to loop this to give us a little more continuity. And the primary circulation zone, it's pretty ragged. We're hitting this so darn high up in the atmosphere because we're far from the radar site. But the primary circulation, I think, is being dictated more by, the 2 areas. You could argue that there are 2 areas of rotation aloft here. I'm going to zoom in a little tighter. Green inbound, red outbound, and then green inbound, red outbound. As we are watching this, a lot of the time it feels like there should be just one. And then in the final analysis, when we get the storm survey data, the Weather Service finds there were 2 or 3, all co-located, but not necessarily in line with one another. So it's not uncommon to get this, and this is happening similar to what Tony's seeing up to the north, multiple circulations, but the primary one, again, has generally been to the north. You can even see 2 little, almost a hint of 2 little notches there within that storm, which is moving through parts of south central Sullivan County. Heading farther west, my eye is drawn a little farther south right now, but as we take a look at this, moving right into the area near Laredo and Alpha, this storm seems to be kind of hugging the southern fringe of the tornado warning. So near Laredo and Alpha, zooming in here, green is at inbound. This is where the radar data is coming in toward the radar site. Red is outbound, so this is the area of rotation with this other cell between Laredo, very close, basically right over Laredo and Alpha, and barely north of Nyack. We are in northern Missouri here, way northeast of the area of Kansas City, west of Kirksville, but moving in the direction of Kirksville. Weather Service opting to remove the confirmed tag here for the storm that Tony has been chasing. We talked about those 2 areas of rotation up there to the north. So here we are with a red update to the previously purple polygon. And that means we're looking at an update. The revision to the confirmed means now in red, radar indicated, which is good news. Looking for more reports here with another system that we use. Not seeing any. Let's jump back to another view of other things that are going on. This is what future radar is looking like. And when Aaron Jack was talking, he talked about the intensification being hinted at by the short-range modeling northeast of Rochester into Wisconsin. And this is what this is showing. This is the HER. It shows more rain returning to Chicago probably around 10 or 11 p.m. Probably not severe. Probably not severe. The atmosphere is more stable because you got rolled over by those 72-mile-per-hour winds at Midway. But farther south, the overnight severe risk may be greatest down near St. Louis, I-70. And that's where I get concerned about Indianapolis and other areas continuing to take this forward. This is after midnight. Moving farther east. Looks like storms. You can see the modeling is amazing because it can simulate real processes in the atmosphere. And take a look at this near Indianapolis. You can see this is the beginning of an outflow boundary. And it's amazing that the models can simulate this. And if this happens like that, it would be very aligned with reality. Outflow boundary outruns the storms. It cuts off the fuel, and residual rain just weakens into an area of eastern Indianapolis. So that's what we could be facing. And then down to the south, look out there, Carbondale, Harrisburg, Illinois, Evansville, Paducah. Some risk there, but we're going to see storms meet their demise then early in the morning there, but they'll be fueled by a different process into central Iowa late at night into the wee hours of the morning. Current environment here. This is why the atmosphere is probably not going to be as conducive to severe weather in this zone here, where we just saw those tremendous storms roll through and it sapped the energy out of the atmosphere. 71 in Chicago. So again, big changes there. The updated severe watches graphic from Kayla Schuster. Here we are with a severe thunderstorm watch until 10 p.m. Central for Springfield to Lafayette. To Fort Wayne, South Bend, Defiance, Ohio, all the way up into Mount Pleasant and areas just south of Sleeping Bear Dunes, Michigan. Tornado watch in effect here for a few million people from Kansas City to Davenport and beyond. So that's the big idea here. Quick look at the ongoing storms. We've been looking at those tornado threats elsewhere. We care about you. We haven't been showing these as much up in northern parts of Minnesota. Still some severe weather near Duluth and into the lake country to the north. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break and checking out some of your YouTube comments. What can Wauwatosa, Wisconsin expect for tonight? I agree, the radars are impressive. A lot of information. Well, I need to look up where Wauwatosa, and maybe I'm mispronouncing it. I've done worse in Wisconsin. Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Where are you? You are to the east. Oh, you're in Milwaukee Metro. You're fine. You're going to be fine for the rest of the evening here. Late tonight, we could see some action, but you'll notice, remember earlier you were under a watch in Milwaukee? No longer the case. And we can go back to future radar again just briefly. You may see some more rain late tonight. I'm going to draw. Sometimes we get complaints from people. They say, why don't you have Milwaukee labeled? It would be at the expense of Chicago. We want to keep the happiest people, the most populated areas happiest. So here you can see a hint, perhaps some redevelopment of a thunderstorm that might blitz through Oak Creek or maybe the area near Wauwatosa. It doesn't look all that likely that it would become a truly severe storm, but modeling is hinting that something might move back into that area. I'm looking at this cell here when I say that. But overall, big picture, just conventional wisdom would suggest the atmosphere was a lot more unstable earlier, and now you're back near 70 degrees. And again, it's not going to be it's like you're going from 93 octane fuel, which is very expensive right now, to 87 octane fuel because of the atmosphere being less warm. It's just a little cooler because you had those storms barrel through. Let's take a look at the power outages here. We have big numbers. I'm glad to see that Missouri is under 10,000 because we've had some tornado threats there. I'm going to clean this one thing up. I do see sometimes this map has a little bit of funny business. Where is this coming from? That is supposed to be North Dakota. Get that out of there. All right. We are in a commercial break right now. That's why I'm doing some of this nonsense. But overall, tomorrow, by the way, the severe risk is going to be escalating for those of you in areas like Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, and the Milwaukee and Chicago metro. Tomorrow, This looks like a lot like our map from earlier today. But unfortunately, tomorrow we have a high risk for severe storms. And actually, tomorrow's risk is a little more driven by a mix of both wind and tornadoes, with a greater risk for tornadoes, unfortunately, in southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, and northern parts of Illinois. And when we look at the mechanics in the atmosphere, there'll be a lot of warmth. You're going to warm back up in a hurry tomorrow. The humidity is going to be high, so you're going to have high octane fuel. And the jet stream dip is moderately strong, so there's going to be some energy to drive this as well. But overall, we're going to get a cool down that follows then behind this. And it'll be kind of nice. It'll be really nice. 5-star weather returns to Chicago on Friday, so we're looking forward to that. But by the way, while we're in a commercial break, a quick preview to Saturday. Storms return to Kansas City and Des Moines and Wichita, Springfield, Joplin, Omaha, Lincoln, and other areas on Saturday. So this is a busy time of the year for sure. And, we had a nice break for a bit, but we're back into a busy time here weather-wise. I'm going to go back to radar here. The AccuWeather Network is going to be rejoining us for a 7-minute break in 30 seconds. And the Northeast storms are behaving themselves nicely. There are some storms up there, even up in northern parts of New England, but it's lightning and heavy rain. Small tree limbs may come down with some of that wind, but most of those are not quite severe. All right. Alrighty. We are back on the AccuWeather Network, and we're tracking some ongoing severe weather. We are dealing with a pretty nasty setup here for severe weather that continues, and we're dealing with a lot of severe weather bringing wind, hail, and even isolated tornadoes here in the northern parts of Missouri and southern parts of Iowa. Let's take a look at a few different things here. I'm going to briefly check out an internal tool that we're using. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Here we are from our team. All right, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, gusted to 94 miles per hour earlier. That's incredible wind there. Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 94 mile per hour wind. Nasty stuff. Very, very nasty. We want to take a look at what's going on here into parts of northern Missouri and southern sections of Iowa. And we could take a look at a few of these other storms that have been bringing some nasty tornado potential to some areas, briefly touching down, thankfully in relatively low population areas. In fact, one of these storms moved right through an area barely north of Unionville, Missouri. And as I zoom in here, we're going to see that label pop up there, Unionville. And I'm going to go to the high-res radar data. All right, that sounds good, Mel. Thank you. As we switch over to the Des Moines, Iowa radar, and we can take a look at the velocity scan. Then we can look at the history of this storm as well. So this storm looks like it's changing character quite a bit. Makes me begin to think that perhaps this is beginning to line out and become more of a wind gust producer. But for now, because of the history of this storm, there's still a tornado warning and tornado risk here. Northern parts of Scotland County, Missouri, and Van Buren County, Iowa. You'll notice those are in red. They're no longer in purple, and they are not being warned as a confirmed tornado. But as we kind of may be seeing this storm move past its prime, here's the shear track that shows the history of this. And the strong rotation was maximized when it moved really close to Unionville. Look at that. Very close to, barely north of Unionville. I don't know if this was just radar data noise, but the primary storm was certainly barely north of Unionville by a couple of miles. And Tony Lawback was there to confirm that Unionville did okay through that storm. But also, we're tracking a couple of other cells. So let's bring in AccuWeather severe weather expert Guy Pearson from AccuWeather's Severe Weather Center in Wichita, Kansas. Guy, I'm going to switch over to the Kansas City radar. I feel like we're very close to where we were with you a couple of hours ago with these same storms. And these guys have, they kind of got the thumbprint of a classic supercell, but they're getting a little close to one another.
Yeah, some of them have started to congeal a little bit and sort of combine into one here. So, they've finally moved along a little bit. So there are a couple counties over, but we're still seeing the same characteristics as earlier. We still have that hook, as you're seeing there on the velocity data. We still have some rotational areas within it. So that first area that you drew off to the northeast there, starting to weaken a little bit, but that's because of the original inflow coming into the storm as the surface is sort of being cut off a little bit more, so it doesn't have that rotational column all the way up that you would expect to see with a developing tornado. But the one back towards Schaffner there, that is certainly the better rotation area. It's on that southern end, so it has that inflow wind to really work well with it to potentially, develop a tornado in there. And that's why the National Weather Service has issued that newer box there farther south to encompass that rotation that was sort of moving south of Laredo earlier and starting to move on east with time there.
And we've had a pretty good set of eyes on the storm to the north that Tony Lawback tracked through the area very, very close to Unionville. Now, it to me looked a little bit like it's losing its character and becoming more of a linear threat. What is your take? I'm going to bring up the velocity scan on this again. I don't mean to put you on the
when you
spot.
had that up a few minutes ago, and I'm assuming it's going to show us the same thing here. Yep. The outbounds, or what we call the outbound green velocity, or sorry, the actual inbound green velocity there is sort of starting to be undercut a little bit by the red outbound velocity, because this is Des Moines, if I'm not mistaken, right,
Yes.
Geoff? So
let me double check that. Yeah.
Yep, it's starting to push out a little bit more, so you don't have quite that rotation on the front edge, and it is a little more ragged looking when you look at it from a reflectivity standpoint. The one thing, as far as when we try to look at things and sort of start to close the book on potential tornado, is when we start to get that gust front that's out ahead of the main line. So looking at reflectivity there, I don't think we quite have that yet. Like you mentioned, though, this is sort of an area that is between a lot of different radars. So you're looking very high in the atmosphere, and you don't really get to see some of the individual nuances sometimes that you can see when storms are closer to the radars themselves.
Yeah, it's a bit of a throw here from Des Moines. I've debated what radar site to use. That's now we're 109 miles per hour, or miles away. So that's what, 9 or 10 miles up? Maybe you may have these numbers memorized better than me. Something like that.
It's a ways up there.
It's ways up there, yeah. And then the Davenport view may almost be more instructive. It's about time for the handoff, I guess. Sometimes I switch over to velocity just to locate the radar because it pops to my eye a little bit better. I think we are getting a little closer to Davenport. Still 105 miles, so we're kind of in no man's land. But still a couple.
Davenport, though, as things continue to move to the northeast there, it's sort of right in line with the radar. So we're looking at wind speeds and how they relate to the radar themselves, if the storm is moving towards the radar, then that's actually going to give us a pretty good look at, potentially what some of the winds and or what the rotational speed is within those. Whereas if you have a storm that's sort of paralleling the radar beam itself, then it doesn't really sample very well, the wind speeds and all the direction in there with every time. So
that's a very good point. And I switched to base velocity. We're seeing 86 miles per hour. Granted, it's way, way, way up there, but maybe 70 or 80% of that translates down to the ground. So we're looking at 60 plus mile per hour gust potential. And to your point, Guy, we can see a pretty clear presentation here with that couplet. We're about to go to a commercial break here, Guy. So we always appreciate your insight and your whole team there in Wichita. Thanks again, Guy.
No problem.
All right. Stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network. All right. We've been tracking some of these storms here along the Iowa-Missouri line. And still a significant risk here for tornadoes, 2 or 3 separate cells in that area of northern Missouri, getting closer to Kirksville. That's a large population center. In fact, it's its own TV market, the Kirksville, Missouri, Ottumwa, Iowa TV market. When you got your own local TV stations, that means it's a pretty significant economic hub for the area and so forth. Michigan, nasty straight line winds here moving through. What are we doing with gusts? We're beginning to see our first gust reports pop up here. Grand Rapids, Michigan Weather Service office. They're always quick to pump these out there, which is great. Multiple trees down in Holland, Michigan. Saugatuck, trees and wires down. We're going to soon see Michigan get lit up here with their power outage graphic. Waterville, they're in Berrien County, 60 mile per hour gusts. Benton Heights, 63 miles per hour, right off of the lake. Right off of the lake there. Less friction over water can allow the winds to be especially fierce in situations like these. And up into Parkdale along, near Michigan 52 there. It's a beautiful area. Highly recommend camping at Sleeping Bear Dunes. We got to do it years ago, and it's a cool place. But that area facing some strong winds as well. The strongest winds, some of them, 95-mile-per-hour gust there, 94 at Oshkosh Airport, Wisconsin, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And we also had, I'm going to try to find this real quick, Midway Airport gusted significantly. This 72 miles per hour. So a lot of these Chicago area reports pretty fierce with a lot of wind that moved through the third biggest city in the country. We're about to come back from a commercial break on the AccuWeather network here. It'll be a 2-minute break on the network. So thanks for being with us here, and stick around. All right. Thanks for being with us on the AccuWeather Network for tracking several storms. I wanted to give you a little bit of a comprehensive view of what's going on for the next 2 minutes. We're still tracking. We've spent a lot of time looking at the rotation here, the damaging thunderstorm potential with tornadoes near and west of Kirksville, Missouri. Also a storm that is moving through the area. Get rid of lightning, moving into an area along the Missouri-Iowa line. And if we can, we're going to briefly go north up into parts of Michigan and look at the whitecaps in St. Joseph, Michigan. The strongest of the winds and the most intense of that view was when the storms first rolled in. But South Bend is facing a nasty storm right now. So that's rolling right through. Not quite severe there at Notre Dame, but it's a strong thunderstorm. It was warned as severe from South Bend to Granger earlier. That warning has been allowed to expire. But we are seeing some strong winds pick up into Michigan now. There is a report of trees and wires down. Benton Heights had a 63-mile-per-hour gust not long ago. That was at 6:03, a little bit ago, when the storms first rolled in. And look at all these wind damage reports from today. I want to briefly take us up into this storm here. This is probably the one. Now, one of these storms, either this one or the one to the south, is what Aaron Jack is tracking. And what do we have? I want to see if we can... we may need to bring in another radar site to bring this one up with more clarity. But overall, tornado warning has been issued for this cell, and this is for Arcadia in Trempealeau, the county of Wisconsin, and Buffalo County of Wisconsin. One area of rotation. It looks like somewhat of a cell merger, and it's the hook here. And forgive the fuzzy radar data here. Looks like that tornado warning has just been allowed to expire. How about that? All right, so that tornado warning was with us, and it wasn't. Hopefully you'll stay a lot longer than that did. All right, we just set the AccuWeather network to a break, and we are in pretty good shape here. We just heard from Guy Pearson. Thanks again to Guy for his update there. Yeah, I don't think we need to bring in a radar site here for that view, unless we want to swap out Chicago and bring in, I'm debating right now. It may be that, let's do the La Crosse radar site. I'm going to message one of my coworkers very briefly. And see here. We can certainly afford to drop the Chicago radar site now. That was like priority number 1 earlier, but my fire pager's going off here. It's been quiet here in central PA. I'm just putting in a request here. This is very much commercial break activity. Could we swap Chicago out and put ARX in? La Crosse, Wisconsin. All right. We're just kind of taking care of business here. Hey, Detroit has a severe thunderstorm warning. We'll have to mention this. So Wayne County doesn't look impressive, but a small storm here has popped, bringing some strong winds developing right over Detroit. You had a tornado warning in southern parts of Wayne County yesterday. Nothing that I saw came of that, but there were tornadoes confirmed up closer to the Flint, Saginaw, and Bay City area. Seeing reports, want to make sure that this report of a tornado is not terribly new. 30 minutes ago, the Davis County, Iowa tornado touched down briefly. That was the cell that Tony was on. All right, I'm going to hop over to the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything from you guys. And a lot of silence right now. A lot of silence. All right. So Hudsonville, Indiana. So and I need to refresh my memory. I don't know where Hudsonville is, but let me check this out. Somebody asked about Hudsonville, Indiana. Hudsonville, Indiana. This is Hudsonville, Michigan. Hudsonville, Indiana. Here we are. Looks kind of a little west of, southwest of Bloomington. Not far to the west of French Lick, the hometown of Larry Bird. How about that? All right, let's get down this way. Hudsonville, you're doing okay, honestly. The risk for you is going to be later at night. There is nothing in view for the next couple of hours. I'm going to switch over to our forecast graphic here. First off, this is a view of the watches that are currently in effect, and you'll notice none of them for Hudsonville, Indiana. As we switch over, I just want to make sure I'm not missing any new updates to our current storm graphic. So there are no new updates. We don't even highlight Hudsonville tonight for severe. Let's see how that aligns with the future SATRAD from this product here. This is the short range high resolution rapid refresh. So this would suggest that there will be storms that roll in late tonight after midnight. There would be some small risk of severe, but it would probably be just straight line winds. So this particular product is perhaps a little bit more aggressive than our AccuWeather forecast team's assessment here for I-70 and points south. I think that might be something that I'm going to bring up to the group chat here to our forecast team, just to I want to bounce this off of them. And I got 10 seconds to type it. Do we want to consider some risk south of I-70 in Indiana? All right. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are just taking a look at the overall severe threat for many areas here into the middle and upper Mississippi Valley. We've had a significant risk of damaging wind, and that's sure verified in the Chicago metro. Let's get back to the radar. And just as a reset, I'm going to turn the reports on, and they overwhelm the map. Look at all those purple dots in Illinois. That is a lot of chainsaw sharpening this weekend for some of you. Unfortunately, it's going to involve a lot of tree limbs down. We've seen a lot of reports here, large tree limbs down. It's going to be a busy weekend of cleanup for some, and into areas like the area around Platteville and Kendall County in Illinois. Kankakee, you had a fast start to the severe risk earlier today or earlier this spring, with that tornado that touched down in the Kankakee area. But our main concern right now, and this is where I'm going to take us, and this is where we're going to hear from some others as well, most likely. As I turn the reports on and slide the map, you'll see some of these red dots. These are the tornadoes that have been reported so far in the past several hours. Some of these not that long ago. So one of these has been in the area near Moulton, Iowa, 6:11 Central Time. Another one, I'm going to zoom in real tight so we can get an update. Here's one 6 miles southeast of Moulton, and that was at 5:25 Central Time. 5:25 Central. That was earlier with an earlier cell. Other cells earlier in the day, reports of tornadoes on the ground. I like seeing how they're phrased because they're not reports of major structural damage. They're reports of tornado touchdowns from, in this case, the fire chief there in Garden Grove, Iowa, or in other cases from storm chasers. We had a nasty storm that was producing a tornado move earlier today. I'm going to bring up the high-res radar data out of Des Moines, and I'm going to bring up this product called Shear Track. And this shows the path of this tornado threat that basically this is just an objective path that the rotation took. And it was really, really close to Unionville. In fact, Tony Lawback was in Unionville when it came through, looking from south to north. So that has been probably the main story of the day. Other stories, and this is a little messier looking. I'm going to take us briefly down into the Kansas City radar site. Okay, that sounds good, Mel. We'll go to Tony in a moment. Man, these two cells that had been totally independent supercells in northern Missouri, they have congealed into one big mess right now. Still a risk of tornadoes. We're looking at this from the perspective of the Kansas City radar site. And as we look at this, still two discrete areas of rotation. They're still holding on, kind of maintaining themselves. They're almost like, I want to say conjoined twins. I don't know if that's an appropriate thing to say these days or not. Not sure. I mean, no ill will by any of that. But again, this is kind of joined together. And overall, we're dealing with outbound wind versus inbound wind in two separate areas. So Browning to Butte and Mystic, those two areas, one big messy cluster, but two separate areas of rotation still maintaining themselves. And as we heard from Guy Pearson, his money would be on this southern rotation zone here. I'm kind of highlighting some of the features at play because it's unobstructed, at least from the south, where that warm, humid air is flowing into it. This other one to the north here, there's going to be some more interaction between the cell behind it breathing down its neck. Let's go farther north. We're going to check back in with Tony Lawback. Meteorologist and storm chaser Tony Lawback is joining us from Kirksville, Missouri. He is in place ahead of this storm. Tony, I like your call on abandoning that storm to the north because it's looking like it's transitioning slowly to something that might be a little bit more wind producing, though there is still a tornado threat in Van Buren County, Iowa, and far northern Scotland County, Missouri, but there's a trend upward into Adair County, Missouri. So what's your take on this? It's kind of one messy cluster, a composite cluster of what was once two separate supercells.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I think when we first talked earlier today, Geoff, we were kind of noting the idea that the tornado potential today was going to be with storms that stayed discrete, and that's indeed what happened there early on. Why we've seen so many tornado reports, and the storm that I'm now focusing my attention on, coming into the Kirksville area, again, is discrete despite the two of them kind of, becoming one. I guess I'll Spice Girls reference that one there. But that's going to be the one I am tracking here. Trivia, if you're interested, while we're in a down spot here, May 13th, 2009 was the Kirksville Novinger tornado. It was the first tornado I saw as official meteorologist. It was literally the day after my last final. We chased that storm with Twistex. So kind of in familiar territory here, unfortunately, as a lot of my friends from previous viewing areas always like to note, we love when you come to town, but we know that's never good. So folks in Kirksville, unfortunately, I'm back. We'll see exactly what happens. Unfortunately, I think regardless of the tornado potential with these storms, Geoff, we're going to be looking at probably some hail, maybe some damaging winds with these as well. Kirksville, while may not see direct impacts from anything tornadic, I don't know. Again, we've been talking about kind of the radar hole we're in right now. Makes it very difficult to really attain the structure of the storm from a distance. But given the signature of the radar, I would assume there's probably some very large hail that is coming for Kirksville. So at the very least, if you're in Kirksville right now, I would think about getting your car in the garage at the very least. Take that right now is probably your initial step. Obviously, if you have to drive somewhere far, don't do that. But if you are parked in your driveway and you got room in your car or room in your garage, park the car in, get it covered. At least do that much. Right now, I don't see an extension of the tornado warning to Kirksville. You mentioned there are two areas of circulation. I'm seeing that on radar. I think we're going to lose the north one as these cells continue to kind of join together. The issue for me right now is just finding a spot where I've got a view to the west as these storms come in. So that is my goal right now, is to try to ascertain a place to pull over so I can see to the west and see what's coming toward Kirksville. So as we've been doing for chunks of the night, I'll be here and I will get in your ear as soon as I get something to talk about.
All right. Good stuff, Tony. Don't be shy. I know you never are. It's good. We appreciate it. I brought up this hail track product that shows an increasing trend, a broadening trend here with more and more hail. There wasn't a whole lot of that out near Trenton. Now you're seeing a larger depiction of this. Now, granted, we're far from the radar site, so we're hitting this pretty high up, and the beam actually gets wider the farther from the radar site that you get, so that may give us a little bit of a false broadening sense. But still, the message is true. There's some big-time hail out there just south of Milan, and it's on a trajectory to move into Kirksville. As we go back to the actual, well, this is the storm hazards feature. Sometimes the numbers run a little hot, admittedly, but here's an estimate now of 2-inch diameter hail. We lost that little white dot. We're down to black, but still, that's very feasible. I'm not seeing a whole lot of reports of that yet, but south of town, if you're not in Trenton, if you're not in Milan, and if you're in a rural part of northern Missouri, then there may not be as many eyeballs to report large hail. But Tony, I agree with him there. He was talking about the changing character of this, and the northern area of rotation. It's broadening out. A lot of green there, but it's not as focused. If we go back one frame, I'm going to go back one frame, 707, Let's go back to 704. You can see there at least was, and probably will still be at times, some tightness to this southern couplet. I'm trying to draw it so tight that the arrow is fighting with itself. But that's a little tighter than this broad, kind of fuzzy, ambiguous inbound, outbound. And I think that might be the sign of the beginning of the end for the northern area of rotation, but maybe not at the expense of the southern area of rotation. Regardless, take shelter if you're in northern Lynn County of Missouri or in Sullivan County of Missouri. And if you're in Kirksville, Tony had good advice there. Bring that car in or take it to the carport if you can. Tony is following, is that, I don't know if he's behind our friend Reed Timmer or if that's a truck. It's an unusually shaped vehicle. Okay. I wasn't sure if I was seeing the Dominator or a truck. I wasn't quite sure. Good stuff. All right. You never know. There are some funny, unusual storm chase vehicles out there, and between the TIV, the Tornado Intercept vehicle, and the Dominator, we've talked to read about it. He has mixed feelings when he drives it. He becomes it's like a museum on wheels. He's trying to get work done, and sometimes people are following him. So sometimes he also prefers to kind of go in stealth mode, as Tony does, as just a more typical vehicle that draws a little less attention. But it's a cool thing regardless. All right. Well, let's take you a little farther north. I want to look at some other storms. There's a new tornado warning up into the Davenport area. And we got a nice upfront view, unlike some of those other storms where we're looking way up in the sky, miles up into the sky, 7, 8, 9,000 feet up there. In this case, we are looking at a much closer view. This is just a few hundred feet above the ground. And this is because the radar site is right here. And here we got a new tornado warning into the Davenport area, the heart of the Quad Cities. So Davenport, Rock Island, Moline, look out. A lot of people live in this area here. Sometimes if the population center doesn't have a single name, people don't notice it as much. But if you combined these cities, Davenport, Rock Island, Moline, you would have a huge, a relatively big city there. And as we switch over to the high-res radar data, we'll also give you population for this, as this is looping away. All right. I want to get this to you before the break. Yeah, we got 323,000 people under this tornado warning. And looking at rotation. So there was a brief spin up a couple of frames ago in this area. It's not sustaining itself, but there could have been a brief tornado touchdown. Take shelter in this area. So Davenport, Iowa, again, it was really one frame that may have prompted that. I think that this, I don't blame the Weather Service for issuing. Before the warning was issued, you could see inbound, outbound. Let's take it a step farther. Strong inbound for this little chunk. And they issued a warning. They probably were writing up the warning at this moment. It's not big. It's not big at all. But this is it's like we're looking at this with bifocals, because even though that looks like tiny little noise compared to the broad stuff we're looking at in northern Missouri, we are only 16 miles, 17 miles from the radar site. So that was giving us a really good scan of the very low levels of the atmosphere. It would not at all be surprising to see that little blip, 2-3 minutes ago could have produced, well, not 2 or 3 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, could have produced a tornado. And the inbound wind was still strong near and north of Bluegrass. And then what I'm looking at here is something that probably lost its ability to sustain itself, because I lose that feature. I'm going to go back one more time. Pleasant Prairie, here it is. Inbound, outbound. Warning gets issued. Right there it is. It is warned. That locates really well with the thinking of the Weather Service. They put that right in the western part of the polygon. Strong inbound, not much going on. Still by default, some rotation possible. That was at 7:12? No, 7:05. And then it began to get disrupted. And I think this is where it loses itself here. So it's just gone, and we can basically exit out. But the warning does continue. The Weather Service will probably give us a little more time to see how it cycles up or down. And another thing to keep in mind, we're going from a few hundred feet above the sky, above the ground, to maybe 100 feet above the ground, because we're getting really close to the radar site. Maybe more than 100, but for all intents and purposes, we're looking at a slightly different elevation as it gets really close to and then crosses the radar site. So it's possible we may see this spin back up. I don't think it's producing a tornado right now, but play it safe if you're in Davenport, Rock Island, Moline. There was a small scale feature that spun up, and it could be producing a tornado. That's my interpretation of what just went down there, based on that small scale feature that we got a really close look at there on radar. So I think that what prompted that warning was a brief moment, few moments, just a little bit ago, and it could spin back up. So just stay in your shelter. You're not going to be in a shelter for long there in Davenport. We are tracking still ongoing tornado threats down to the south, approaching the area of Kirksville. Before we get back to break, I'm in a conversation here with some forecasters. I'm going to bring up a different version of the high-res rapid refresh. I showed you the version in our system. It doesn't look that impressive, but I'm going to bring it up through a different source. I want to make sure that I'm getting the absolute latest. This is the stuff we do during commercial breaks a lot of the time. And then there's some nonsense too. But here we are with... Yeah, okay. All right. We're about to get back here with the network here. It'll be a 7-minute hit on the AccuWeather network. Big waves there in St. Joseph following the storm. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue our YouTube live simulcast. We are watching some severe weather continuing to roll through parts of the Midwest. Here, this product that I have right now is the Future Radar and Clouds, and I'm going to take this forward. We're watching the future of these storms rumbling through parts of central Illinois into Indiana. And again, some risk for severe storms, but there will be a new episode late tonight into early tomorrow that may make some of you up. It may wake some of you up in Omaha, Nebraska, and into Des Moines, Iowa. And then we have big concerns tomorrow about the next episode of severe weather. So current power outages. We got some big numbers here. Illinois, 280,000 addresses without power. Indiana has 15,000. Ohio, 10,000. Wisconsin with 26,000, 67,000, I should say. And overall, I'm going to go back to a different thing here with our other products. But again, we're dealing with a lot of power outages, and the current watches graphic shows a tornado watch continues in northern parts of Kansas, northeast Kansas into northern Missouri, into the Davenport area. Numerous severe thunderstorm watches from the international border in the Rainy River Basin all the way south to Dubuque, and then also from Springfield and areas around east central Illinois, near and north of Effingham, into places like Lafayette, Fort Wayne, South Bend, all the way through western parts of Michigan. And look at all the rain there in Winona, Minnesota earlier. Davenport facing currently still technically a tornado warning. There was a brief feature that spun up a possible tornado. We looked at it in some detail with our YouTube Live followers. There was a brief tightening of a very small scale couplet that likely prompted that tornado warning, but there could be something similar that returns. It may spin back up. So if you're in Rock Island, Davenport, Moline, take shelter. Over 300,000 people under a tornado warning there. The main event, though, that we're most concerned about here is in northern parts of Missouri and extreme southeast Iowa. I'm less and less concerned about the Iowa cell right now. It just doesn't look like as much of a tornado producer, but I want to confirm that here with high-res radar data. Take shelter still. I don't want to dismiss the tornado warning. Van Buren County, Iowa, take shelter. There's still a risk for a tornado here. We're looking at this from the... Let's look at this from the Davenport radar site now. We're beginning to get a little bit closer to that one. And the old measuring stick shows about 92 miles. Reflectivity is down. You're seeing the yellows and oranges take over where there were once reds. That's a good sign. Velocity scan. Doesn't look that impressive to me. I think that this tornado warning is going to be on its last legs. There is still some rotation. I want to zoom in here. Some hints of rotation with the red against the green. Perhaps some rotation exiting the warning. It does not look all that ominous. Second opinion going to the Des Moines radar site. What's it look like from that angle? There's still some rotation. It's not terribly strong. I think it's becoming more outflow dominant. All this is moving toward the radar site. This is moving away. So if we kind of fill in the gaps, there's still a little bit hint of rotation here between Utica and Harrisburg. It's Utica and Harrisburg, Iowa. But the risk, I think I'd put this lower on the scale. We're down to one tornado warning here. We talked about these two separate supercells that were on their own. I'm going to go to the Kansas City radar site, and we're going to bring up the shear tracks, the shear track that shows the path the velocity has taken. And these storms, I say these plural, been on the ground. Well, they've been producing some degree of rotation for about 83 miles through the northern periphery of the Kansas City, Pleasant Hill, Missouri radar scan. But as we look at the velocity scan now, I'm going to loop this. There was a time when there were two separate areas of rotation, two separate ones. And it looks like we are down to mainly one. And it may actually still be the northern one that actually is holding strong with a hint of rotation in the southern fringe. But as we take a look at it looks like the northern one is held on here. That is the storm. That is the part of the storm with the strongest, most dominant rotation at this point, at least aloft. So red versus green. There's still red versus a hint of green down to the south. There have been two separate cells running in tandem, but when we look at the reflectivity, they generally have merged into one big storm. So I don't think we can maintain two separate areas of rotation for much longer, and perhaps the northern one has become dominant. It's not strong rotation. It's very broad. It's very high up in the atmosphere. By the mileage, we are looking at a distance. I'm going to go back to velocity only so I can see the radar site location. We're looking at about 119 miles away. So that's a pretty good throw, getting high up into the atmosphere. But that is one concern, the tornado threat moving into the area near Kirksville, Missouri. So those are two warnings that we're seeing right now on the map. Davenport still under a tornado warning. Let's revisit this to see if it might be passing through the cone of silence, the area right under the radar, and actually perhaps the velocity couplet, if there is one. I gotta go back here. I'm gonna train my eye to the thing that prompted the original warning. This was it. It was this tiny little green versus red, right? Not much to see. This little guy is what prompted the tornado warning, and that was at 7:02. And as time progressed, I want to track that and continue to trace it. So this thing had prompted the warning. There was strong inbound, not much outbound, but this was a tracer of what may have been a brief tornado touchdown as the warning was being issued. And then strong inbound, and then it begins to lose character and then it goes right through the cone of silence, and now it has emerged to the east of it. I don't see any rotation with it right now. I really don't. Well, I'm not sure. We need to wait for another scan to come in. We need to wait for another scan here, and we're just not going to get good information until this gets a little farther from the radar site. Perhaps some strong inbound. If we see some more red here, then that would be a sign that it is still producing some rotation. But that's the motivator here behind this possible tornado. There's also a zone to the south where there's outbound versus some inbound. This is a chaotic little area where there could be a tornado in a couple of different areas. So Davenport, Rock Island, Moline, still stay in your shelter. Tornado warning running until 6:45 Central Time. All right, so obviously for my tone there, not an obvious clear-cut tornado threat of significance, but again, this is moving through the cone of silence and moving really close to the radar site, and we need to get a little bit more time to see how this is faring. Sometimes when a storm is moving through not just the area that's blotted out, but a few of these concentric rings, if you're too close to the radar site, you're scanning real close to the ground, and the radar processing is maybe not exactly what you would hope for. Sometimes we get the best view when you're like 8 to 40 miles from the radar site. So this is going to get back to about 8 miles out in just a few minutes here. So that'll give us a better sense of if that warning needs, if it's still one that is worthy of significant concern to the level of some of them to the south. So Aaron J. Jack's been out and about with some of these storms near Winona. There's Lancaster, Missouri earlier. There's a dark sky there because of that storm. Look at the waves in St. Joseph, Michigan. That's pretty impressive. The wind's following the front, almost like a sting jet or something like that. I don't think that's necessarily what's happening, but there are strong winds following this squall line, and look what they're doing to the waves there in St. Joseph, Michigan. Pretty cool stuff. Davenport, Iowa, you are, tornado warning or not, you're in the teeth of this storm right now, and that's not a fun drive over the US 67 bridge. In fact, if I had family members traveling right now and they had knowledge of the tornado warning, I would suggest they not drive at this point. Give it some time until that tornado warning passes. Even though it's debatable whether there's much rotation out there, there are some features with this storm that are just a little bit suspicious, and just you can get these cell mergers and these little things moving north interacting with other aspects of the storm. They can spin things up pretty quickly as well. So again, I would obey the tornado warning there and respect that. Give it some time before we assess things again in Davenport. All right, thanks for being with us, and a lot of attention here in Davenport, Iowa. A brand new destructive severe thunderstorm warning has been issued here in advance of a lot of wind. So some severe winds here, and a new destructive severe thunderstorm warning being issued from Davenport East. Yes, there is a tornado warning technically in effect there in Davenport. There was a brief spin up that probably touched down, but I don't think it sustained itself long. We're keeping an eye out for a couple of areas where there could be additional rotation. Not obvious, though. It's not a clear-cut case. We just have a couple of these individual renegade cells popping up in advance of the main event pulling east, and these cell mergers can be chaotic. Look at the lightning there in Davenport from the DOT, and your tax dollars at work there in Davenport, Iowa, with a nice view of what's going on. So this storm that has been warned as potentially tornadic. The area of concern is now near Princeton for fierce straight line winds. That is becoming the main event. We can get a nice view, base velocity. We're not even looking for rotation right now. We are looking at the sheer, not the sheer, it's a bad word to say, just the pure wind speed moving away from the radar site. And it can only measure directly parallel to the vector of the radar beam, so it's not giving us the full-scale view. It's not giving us the full-scale view of the strongest wind. It's giving us the component of the wind that's moving away from the radar site. But keep in mind, when I say that, the component, you may have wind that's racing in this direction. All that can measure is the part of it moving this way. It can't measure, it's like the hypotenuse. We can't measure the hypotenuse because radar can't measure the south to north for a radar beam coming in from the west. A little bit of radar 101. Regardless, what we're concerned about is fierce straight line winds into Scott County, Iowa, from LeClaire and Princeton into Whiteside. Very strong winds, potential for 80-mile-per-hour gusts into Prophetstown and Fenton. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break. But that's a nasty storm in a populated area here. More concerned about the wind than about the possible tornado. Let's go farther south. We are still on tornado patrol here to the south with a couple of cells that are still giving us some concern. And we are facing both of these storms. I think that they were a bit more of a threat a little bit ago. They both verified as tornado producers. Look at all these tornado reports. Let's go to the shear track. In fact, I'm going to go to the Des Moines radar site for this. And now I'm going to plot the shear track. Jesse would like this. Jesse's always reminding me. We're talking about the Weather Matrix. Jesse Farrell. He's great. And we like the shear tracks. He and I talk about that product as something that we often underutilize. So let's go to what I want to do is co-locate the shear track with the tornado reports. And it's kind of a cool thing. I'm going to tilt it a little bit. Sometimes these plot three-dimensionally, and I sort of wish that wasn't necessarily the case, but I think it prevents them from plotting inside mountains instead of on top of them. So I want to tilt this totally bird's eye, exactly 90 degrees down. And look at how the tornado reports are located along this shear track. There also was a wind damage report here in Bloomfield of 70 miles per hour at 5:24 Central Time. So about an hour and 3 minutes ago. I don't know if that was from a tornado, but it was measured at 70 miles per hour regardless. But what you will notice is these reports align pretty well with our shear track. This is the path that the rotation took for the storm that passed barely north of Unionville when Tony was in Unionville. And we are very thankful that that report came in north of Unionville and not in Unionville, because that could be a very different situation. As we take you farther south, we've had a couple of tornado reports down to the south as well. In fact, we could do the same thing here with the Kansas City shear track. Kansas City radar site shear track. Let's turn the reports back on. And you can see it's not a surprise that a couple of these tornado reports have been located pretty well within the area, the path of rotation as detected by the radar from Kansas City. Now, one thing that's been messier about this, it really hasn't been one single area of rotation. It's actually been two. So it just kind of muddies up the waters here a bit. But we are far from the radar site as well, so that even further muddies up the waters. There is a brand new tornado warning. Weather Service still holding on to the tornado threat for this one into Kirksville, Missouri. Tony Lawback is in this area, so we will likely check in with him if he's available eventually, maybe when the network rejoins us. But the area of rotation is going to probably pass very close to, if not a little south of Kirksville, Missouri. Kirksville, a big populated area. It's all relative, but we can give you the population of Kirksville. Well, the warning. So it's 27,000 people. I don't want to oversell it, but it is the economic hub of this area, and it's the kind of the flagship of the Kirksville-Ottumwa TV market there, Ottumwa, Iowa, Kirksville, Missouri. While we are here, I wonder if we can get the Topeka radar site in. We're in a commercial break. I'm going to request. I want to see what I can afford to lose. We have 6 spots in the batting order here. We still benefit from Kansas City, I think. Davenport we need. Green Bay, we don't need that anymore. I don't think. Let's get rid of Milwaukee. I'm going to send a quick request in. All right, thanks for being with us here. As I was just putting in a quick request there for a bit of radar swap here, as a new tornado warning has been issued into an area west of Topeka, Kansas. We're facing some nasty storms. A new tornado warning, by the way, was issued into the area of Kirksville, Missouri. About 27,000 people under this tornado warning. Kirksville is kind of the economic hub of northeast Missouri up this way. And there is still rotation. This storm has been one producing sustained shear track. Wind shear has been sustaining this in quite a long ways here. In fact, we can bring up that path. So we can look at shear in a few different contexts. There's wind shear, winds blowing in different directions at different altitudes. But again, for 50 to 70 miles, 80 miles now, that storm has had rotation. 2 rotation areas, but now there's a primary one moving into Kirksville along with some large hail, so that's a big concern there. We're going to go north to Aaron Jack. Aaron Jack's been putting on the miles here. Aaron was up in Canada yesterday, and Aaron, you were in the area near Winona earlier. Now we have a trio of severe cells around Black River Falls and other parts of western Wisconsin into extreme southeast Minnesota, I should say. Where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm just extreme western Wisconsin, just right next to the Mississippi River. And what is this town? We're approaching La Crosse. But we are right with those supercells, or those storms that you were talking about. You can see off to my left here. You can see the bases here, and they were severe warned. Or you mentioned a trio of them. I was on the one in the middle that kind of got consumed by the one to the south. Also, the one to the north was briefly tornado warned. Had a little bit of a velocity couplet on it earlier. But the one in the middle that I was on kind of got consumed by the one to the south, and now we're on the one to the south here. It's tracking right along I-90, moving to the east right now. So a lot of tree damage I saw in Winona, on the east side of Winona, and for a couple of miles to the east of Winona from that cell that I was on, that middle one. Pretty intense wind gusts there, whiteouts from the rain. So bringing some trees down into the road. So still dangerous storms, not tornado warned, but they're continuing to move off to the east. And like I said earlier, once they cross the Mississippi River, it looked like they could potentially intensify, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. They briefly were intensified, had some velocity couplets on there. But yeah, we're tracking the one now, the tail end storm as it moves off to the east tonight into Wisconsin. So severe thunderstorm watch is in effect, and we'll keep tracking here to the east for you guys. Back to you, Geoff.
All right, good stuff there. Get a nice up-close view of this as this comes right into the radar site there near La Crosse, Wisconsin, near Onalaska. Thank you for that report there, Aaron J. Jack. Here we are with a nice shot from those dark clouds and so forth. That's La Crosse, Wisconsin. Just to make this a little more clear, here we got the Mississippi River coming downstream, and overall, we're looking at the area near the Minnesota, Iowa, and western Wisconsin, I want to say line, but really the Wisconsin state line is really the Mississippi River. Nasty storms blitzing through Detroit earlier, and a lot of fierce wind moving through parts of Michigan. Let's take a look at our wind impacts regarding power outages. Ohio is on the list now, over 10,000 addresses without power there. Indiana, 22,500. Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, and Kansas as well. I'm going to take us down to Kansas. There's a new tornado warning down that way. By the way, we've been under a tornado watch for a while, but as we switch back over to analysis mode, I'm going to turn off the reports, take us down to Kansas, and I'm going to drop in a new radar site here for Topeka. So I want to look at this north of Manhattan, and forgive me for just briefly going under the hood here to tweak something, but I'm trying to see what we can afford to get rid of. I'm going to get rid of this guy, and TWX is the Topeka radar site. And there it is. I'm going to swap out what was the Chicago radar site with Topeka. We typically do all this during commercial breaks, but we're staying up during commercial breaks. All right, so here we are. We want to go to Tony Law back in just a minute, but briefly, Tony, I do want to briefly address, this is taking the shape of a supercell, strengthening supercell here in north central Kansas, east of Leonardville into Westmoreland. So we're looking at Riley County, Kansas, into northwestern Pottawatomie County. Now, Pottawatomie County is a large one. This is mainly west of Westmoreland, but look out in Westmoreland. We have concerns there. And the storm relative motions are not looking as impressive as I almost expected, but we're just getting one radar frame to work with. But overall, the red outbound, green inbound, we only have one radar frame to work with. This is going to be working on ingesting new data here, so we'll be able to see with more clarity very soon. But overall, red or green. All right, we got to get back to Tony. So Pottawatomie County, Riley County, Kansas, tornado warning for you. But let's get to Tony Law back here in Kirksville, Missouri. Tony, you got an impressive scene there.
Yeah, Jeff, this is the supercell that is crossing over 63, heading into Kirksville right now. Very impressive. I mean, you're seeing this on the shot. Just I'm as wide as I can go with this storm right now. This is just an incredible sight that's moving across the road here in front of us. This, again, is going into Kirksville. Kirksville, your big threat in town is going to be the hail and the heavy rain, maybe some damaging winds. I believe the circulation is going to pass just to the south of town here. Again, this appears to be an HP supercell. Likely any circulation in this is going to be rain-wrapped. But again, it should stay south of Kirksville. If you're in Millard, that might be an issue for you. Heading over to Brashear as well. So Millard to Brashear would be the area I would anticipate the circulation is here. We're pointing northwest right now. This storm is going to cross just to the south of Kirksville, again, near the Millard area here shortly, Jeff.
And Tony, I'm going to bring up the hail estimate. And again, this is a little bit of a different product, but the storm hazards estimating right now some large hail. We're looking at potentially 1.5 inches or so. And then the hail track, the hail swath, pretty broad here, as you mentioned. That's a great shot, though, Tony. Great shot. So, you're like a student of the mechanics of the atmosphere. What comes to your mind when you see this and what's going on with the inflow and so forth? All right, his live cam just went down. It sounds like he's coming back down. We're coming back up. Look at that greenish sky. It's like that sea green sky that a lot of people often refer to when some people associate it with tornadoes. And there's a lot of research about this. It's not always one-to-one tornado associated, but when the dew points get really high and the sun gets to a certain angle in the sky, that it's a beautiful color there, Tony. And you don't see that with every thunderstorm.
Yeah, and I'm going to here and take this pulled out of this mess right now. But we again, the rain, no hail at this point, is crossing Highway 63. The circulation, I believe I'm clear of the. We're going to be again talking about RFD here, and this is not an illegal one. Yay! So guess what? I'm going to go ahead and take this route, go ahead and flip around just to get clear of this precip. But look how dark it's gotten in here, Geoff. I mean, we went from like daylight with a view, and when I get turned around, you're going to see these rain curtains on the road in front of me, how quickly they're moving across the road here. So I've flipped around, I get the wipers hit for you, and you can see the rain curtains racing across the road here. So very solid indication that there is certainly some rotation evident in this right now. We're again RFD, south side of the hook of where the storm would be. Winds are hitting the side of the car pretty good. I would say we're probably 60 miles per hour right now, just based on kind of getting around a little bit south just to keep ourselves clear. Around in the hook, and then you start seeing 80-mile-an-hour wind-driven falls that come in from the side. So definitely don't want to mess with that. So we're gonna pull out. We're gonna get flipped around up here at the next UE, and we'll let the storm pass in front of us. Kirksville, I would imagine right now, you were probably dealing with some big hail coming into town.
Okay. Good stuff there, Tony. I agree with that. Kirksville facing it right now, the nastiest storm probably of the whole spring for some of you in Kirksville proper. We're looking at rotation, but also large hail. And the area of rotation, as Tony mentioned, it is uncomfortably close to Kirksville. I agree with him. I do think that the most likely spot for a tornado would be marginally south of Kirksville, not by a big margin, though. And I'm going to bring out the ruler here. Like 3 miles south of downtown Kirksville, and that might still put you in some parts of the city limits, the Troy Mills neighborhood and so forth, depending on how broadly the city limits are drawn up. But if you're north of downtown Kirksville, hail is your issue, along with some wind, most likely. But there's some rotation up there to the north too. So again, I don't want to get too. We're looking high up into the atmosphere too. That's another reason why I'm a little bit cautious with this. And actually, as we take a look at the latest scans, there's an area of strengthening rotation to the north of town now. So I think anybody within this whole warning in Adair County should take shelter. And this continues to take shape. You can see, we're unlikely to see a tornado out of the north side. The area of rotation is still likely, at least for cyclonic rotation, barely south of Kirksville, but we're looking high up in the atmosphere, so the rotation is aloft, and that can translate down to the ground as a tornado. You'll notice, though, to the north, you might say, well, why aren't you highlighting the green against the red? Up here, it would be, if that's a tornado, it would be a clockwise tornado, which is very rare. So the predominant risk would still be mainly to the south, but near Kirksville as well. All right, so we have still some rotation here in the area, very close to Kirksville. We just sent the AccuWeather network to a break. We are dealing with, again, some nasty storms in parts of the plains. I'm going to take us down into northern parts of Kansas. Strengthening rotation near I-70, near Abilene, Kansas, by the way. But we need to see this up close with the Topeka radar site. So let's go back to the Topeka radar site. Here we are. An area of rotation. When I saw this earlier, I was a little bit more impressed by the reflectivity, the hook shape here. And when we take a look at the appearance on the velocity scan, it's favoring the southern part of the warning if there is a tornado. We have, again, inbound versus outbound. Here we are with an area of rotation on the south side of that tornado warning. In Pottawatomie County, Kansas. Pottawatomie County, Kansas there, west of Westmoreland. Also marginally concerned about some spinning up here near Abilene. Strong outbound. And this is along Interstate 70 in Kansas as well. So that's a severe thunderstorm threat, but some risk for perhaps a tornado there running along I-70 later on. But Pottawatomie County here, ongoing tornado threat. Let's revisit the situation up in the Davenport area. East of there, we have a new area of rotation. And we're going to go back in. The storm has moved away from the cone of silence, and it looks like this is a new cell. The previous tornado warned cell was to the north. This is a separate little notch that has just ramped up and led the Weather Service to issue a tornado warning near Geneseo and Henry County, Illinois, Western Bureau County, and far southern parts of Whiteside County, Illinois here. We have moved east of the Quad Cities proper. Not by a big margin, though. We're only, 15 miles east of Davenport and Rock Island. So as we look at the velocity scan here, we're going to get the benefit of a close radar shot. And there you can see the reason for this. Pretty clear presentation. Very strong outbound wind right here, moving away from the radar site fiercely. And then we have some inbound here. All this is inbound, all this is inbound, all that is inbound. That's outbound. But there's a little bit of a notch. So there's a proclivity for the atmosphere to spin something up here between Shady Beach, Geneseo, and west of Hoop Hole and northwest of Atkinson. That's the new tornado threat that is emerging. If we go to the base velocity, this is just the absolute speed of the wind within the storm away from the radar site. And it's not taking into account the storm motion wind at all. It's going to be a big number. 86 mile per hour wind, and this is nasty straight line winds here, plus a tornado threat. We're only 22 miles away, so only about 1,000 feet above the ground. We have 86 mile per hour winds. So that's probably meaning that if you get a good downdraft, you're going to probably get a 70 plus mile per hour gust. So that's nasty stuff. To the north, a destructive severe thunderstorm warning is in effect. And to the south, we go back to the base velocity where the storm movement is subtracted. The storm movement is subtracted away from the wind measurements based on the radar pulses hitting different parts of the storm. And as we loop this, let's see this with a little more continuity. There is that area, and that's a little notch. This is the zone here where a possible tornado could be occurring. It's radar indicated. It would likely be a brief spin up and touch down, and then it would lift. I don't think it'd be a long track. But Henry County into Bureau County, nasty storm. We need to revisit that area when we come back as well. But I certainly want to check in with Tony because he's got his hands full with that situation as well. So right now we have 3 storms being warned as potentially tornadic. 2 warnings for the one storm down there near Tony. 1 in Kansas, 1 in Missouri, 1 in Iowa. Overall, 2 warnings in the state of Missouri. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We continue with our live YouTube simulcast as well as the TikTok. TikTok people are out there, and we appreciate that you're with us as well. And as we take a look at 3 separate areas of concern, let's go 4 instead. Why don't I go nuts and we'll go with maybe more than that. We've got storms to the north up into Wisconsin and Minnesota. Some of them are severe, hail and wind, main concerns. Probably not storms that you're going to remember for the rest of your life, but they're storms that are severe, and nonetheless, they could bring trees down and bring other problems as well. Michigan, a classic storm setup that crossed Lake Michigan with fierce winds, white caps on the lake, and now we're dealing with strong winds, severe into places near Flint and Saginaw and Bay City and areas like Lansing and down into areas eventually like Ann Arbor. Then we go down to the south, and here we have a fierce wind producer, 70 plus mile per hour winds likely in parts of northern Illinois east of Davenport by about 15 to 20 miles. Brief tornado threat there as well. Tornado threat confirmed again in northern Missouri, and a developing risk of isolated tornadoes. We talked about this one, and they just issued a new warning for it. I was saying that near I-70 there was a bit of rotation, and here we are. Abilene, Kansas, the tornado warning has been issued by the Weather Service in Topeka, so now is the time that they pulled the trigger on that one as well. Let's go to Kirksville, Missouri. Tony Law back on the prowl. Tony, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, Jeff, there is probably a likely tornado in progress right now. Hard to say. I just got into Millard, and I'm eastbound right now on Road KK. A lot of tree damage in town. Did not see any structural damage. Again, though, we've got some very strong winds. I have heard reports on the scanner of a tornado that was east of 63.
Okay.
Dash cam. I could barely see anything.
I'm looking at GRE right now, seeing if there are any new reports popping. I don't see any new reports popping yet, but again, obviously a confirmed tornado warning. Weather spotters confirming it as well. Tornado on the ground here is reported by storm spotters. Well, as you said, just on the south side of the Kirksville area. I don't think the warning mentioned specifically. You had better information than I had there on exactly where the spotter was. You heard that one. And the Weather Service issuing a new tornado warning in advance of this into Adena as well. But Tony, you haven't seen any damage, I suspect you said. All right, I think we may have lost a little bit of Tony's audio, but look at the wind there. He's driving through a pretty nasty area of wind and rain. The rotation continues in this area, and here as we draw the red and the green, let's. I want to continue to track this here. Man, there's not a whole lot of outbound wind with what was the original area of rotation. We have a lot of outbound, and there's a second area of rotation, I think, that we just need to acknowledge now on the north side. Outbound wind up near Kirksville to Clay, and then there's a second zone here where we've had some rotation as well. The green is where part of the storm is moving toward the radar site. Wait a minute, I switched over to the Quad Cities. All right, I turned myself around there. This is the Quad. For most of this storm, I've been looking at Kansas City radar, but this is Quad Cities. It makes a million times more sense. Here we are. Single zone of rotation. Red is outbound. I was thinking from the terms of the Kansas City radar site, which is what I was using for most of this storm track. Now we're getting close enough to Cedar Rapids and the Quad Cities area, so I switched over to that radar site. That's why I got turned around. Green is moving toward the radar site there, and red out. Away from it. So between Kirksville and Brashear, there is your likely tornado. And as we turn the reports on, hail being reported at Kirksville Airport, south of town. New tornado warning issued in advance of this because of the confidence that this will likely sustain itself. That's into Knox County of Missouri. So again, we got one storm with two warnings. And again, as we go back up into this area here near and east of Davenport, fierce winds. Also, the risk of a brief tornado touchdown here near this little notch in this area, approaching Hoop Pole. But as we look at the actual velocity of the wind, subtracting out storm motions, this is some fierce straight line wind of 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, about maybe 800 to 900, 1,000 feet into the sky. Much of that can translate down to the ground. So you're going to see gusts over 65 miles per hour with this. And there is a destructive severe thunderstorm warning up to the north as well into parts of Clinton, but now Whiteside County, severe winds coming through that area. So again, small risk of a brief tornadic touchdown here, right where you see the apex of the outbound wind. Right there, we could be dealing with a little bit of a spin up here. That's the area of concern for a brief tornadic spin up here. East central and northeastern Henry County into northwestern Bureau County in Illinois, pulling away from the Quad Cities. Heading farther south, let's go to Kansas, and we talked about that developing tornado threat here into the Topeka radar site. The more established area of rotation has been to the north with this cell. It has brought some more obvious signs of rotation with the reflectivity. You go to the velocity scan. Now this is spinning up in a big way. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. I was talking about earlier how it was favoring the south side of the previous warning. So the Weather Service adjusted and issued a new warning to the south. They are in agreement that there's a clear-cut developing significant tornado risk here southwest of Westmoreland, Kansas. That is ramping up sharply and looking out to an area near Louisville, Kansas. Now, the good news is, if there is good news, population is a little slimmer up this way. That tornado warning, unfortunately, because it does have, it has 2,300 people. It does have a few towns, 2,300 people here, Westmoreland. But this is a more populated threat here. Abilene, Kansas. Down in Abilene, we've got 9,000 people here. And this is a developing tornado threat as well, near I-70. And as we loop this here, we can give you a little more continuity in terms of how this is behaving. So, again, inbound wind at times near Abilene, and the strong outbound wind on the north side, running right over I-70 here. Not a good situation for about 9,000 people there, but a bigger threat up into areas around Pottawatomie County, Kansas, west-southwest of Westmoreland. We're also tracking a confirmed tornado in the area of Kirksville, Missouri, not far from Kirksville. All right, we just took the AccuWeather Network to a break there, and we are going to continue. I want to check out our internal communication here. We are planning to conclude our YouTube and TikTok live simulcast at 7:56 Eastern, 6:56 Central. However, we're going to do this again tomorrow with a bigger threat for severe weather moving right back into Chicago. We do want to, and I'm going to reiterate this with the network, but we want everybody to know, have multiple ways to get weather alerts. Have the AccuWeather app with notifications enabled. I'm going to bring up a graphic to hammer home that point. And again, we have some big concerns about the just the ongoing nature of these storms here in many areas across the Midwest tonight, tomorrow, and into the Northeast on Friday, Thursday and Friday in the Northeast for that matter. There is still no new update to this guy, so that's fine. All right. This is the graphic that I wanted to show here in just a bit. We're going to have about 2 minutes to wrap this up here with the AccuWeather Network. Hey, thank you guys for being with us on YouTube. I know that there have been times when I've been a little less engaged with the questions because there have been a lot of moving parts. Youngstown, Ohio, you do have some severe storms approaching. Look at this. The Akron, Canton area. These storms are a little more typical. These will fade a little bit after dark, and I don't know if you're going to fully make it into Youngstown. I suspect you'll have a few rumbles of thunder near Youngstown beyond what you've already experienced, but these storms should be in a weakening state as they move east of I-77 into your area. All right. Nothing severe in Indiana right now, but there will be some strong and severe storms, especially north of I-70 later on tonight in Indiana there, for Columbia City's question. All right. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are going to be concluding the YouTube Live and the TikTok simulcast here in about a minute and 45 seconds. But I wanted to remind everybody about multiple ways. You want to have multiple ways to get weather alerts. And by the way, again, through tonight, we've had some nasty storms out there for many of you. But make sure you have the AccuWeather app. You will get notifications immediately. And if you're going to sleep tonight, and most of you have to go to sleep tonight, if you're in the storm zone where we have more risks, and with the watches remaining in effect for many of you, make sure you have the NOAA weather radio on as well, so that will alert you to maybe switch over to the AccuWeather app, and then you can get more context as to what's going on with the tornado threats there in parts of Kansas. Now, a quick look at the radar here. We are concerned about things ramping up. The confirmed tornado at the moment is in the area near Kirksville, Missouri, and that has been the biggest threat that we're facing right now. You know what? Out of habit, I went to Kansas City again. I want to force myself to go up to the Davenport radar site, and we're going to look at this from the northeast as opposed to from the southwest. That's going to give us the best view of things. Outbound versus inbound. The area of rotation producing this tornado is east of Kirksville. It has left Kirksville, crossing from Adair County into western Knox County of Missouri. It has recently produced a tornado into areas around Topeka. We got two cells. One of these ramping up sharply. Nasty, nasty storm up here into Pottawatomie County. This will likely produce a tornado here west-southwest of Westmoreland. It's on a trajectory to hug the southern part of that warning. Louisville, Kansas is facing a greater risk. Final stop here as we say goodbye into Davenport, Iowa. Vicious straight-line winds and a brief transient tornado threat as well into areas near Prophetstown. The threat for a tornado is present into Henry and Bureau County. Thanks for being with us.